If we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, March 15th. It's 10:05 a.m. For the Commissioners' General Meeting. To my left is County Council, Commissioner Gold, myself, Commissioner Huxley. To my right, Commissioner Boyce. On the agenda, item 2 has to do with agenda amendments. Commissioner Boyce, do you have any?
Actually, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have several, and you may have already thought of these, but the Veterans Proclamation originally was under item number 9 on our agenda, and now it's off, and I'm hoping we can have an opportunity to read that and recognize the Vietnam veterans here and the Daughters of the American Revolution. So, and I have some others as well.
I didn't see it even on. Was it on?
It was on, then it was taken off. Accidentally, I'm sure.
No, it was taken off because it's a kind of a convoluted story, but it was never actually submitted to the BOC admin per our policies, and so at least not in time to be put on the agenda. So therefore, it was treated as a late submittal, and it can be added to the agenda per our late submittal per vote of the board. And if I could, Mr. Chair, one factor in favor of adding it to the agenda today is that the proclamation is also accompanied by an announcement of an event on March 31st, and the board doesn't have another general meeting till April 5th, so there is some urgency to have this matter presented today so that the announcement of the meeting on the 31st can also occur simultaneously.
So, Commissioner Boyce, you've made a motion to add this to the agenda, correct?
That's correct.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Call for the question on that one?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So we can read that fairly early or recognize these?
Correct, but we'll go ahead and get through any other additions.
Thank you.
Or deletions, whatever the case may be.
Okay, also on the submittal file, I had offered the ONC update, and that was also on the agenda. Now it's not there. I had also done the sod, and we decided that could wait because we've had fairly good coverage on the sudden oak death issue. But if there's time at the end of this meeting, I would like to give a quick update on the ONC counties.
Could you just do that during the commissioner comments? Would that suffice?
That'd be fine.
Well, then just bring that up during county council.
And if I could, the item for the ONC County update was the AGRS was presented on time, but per our rules, the AGRS referred to AV materials that would also be presented, and those materials were not included, and therefore that's why under our rules you have to have your AGRS in your material. So that's why it didn't get on the agenda, and we had it in late submittals. But it sounds like you've resolved that.
Okay.
And I'm just going to read a quick letter.
Well, just
great, but that would be during commissioner comments.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Good. County council.
And then if I followed what Commissioner Boyce said, the ONC, I'm sorry, the SOD will be handled perhaps at another time, maybe a work session or even another meeting.
And I'm satisfied with that, yes.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chair, I also had
I'm sorry, did you have any others?
I do.
Okay, good.
The Oregon Research and Education Council on the lease agreement with our office space, there's a real urgency there. And then I learned yesterday that our next meeting is April 5th, which is 3 weeks. I have a question on that. We're getting overloaded on work, and we need, in my view, more meetings, more time, so we can make decisions, not less time. So back to ORIC, is that something it's very urgent we could resolve today?
Yeah, it's been resolved today. I emailed the gal. We're putting that off until after budget time because we need to look at what the needs are.
Just in the interest of clarification, I want to make sure that she's going to be able to move in fairly soon, because without board approval, can't she move in?
She already has a lease on the one office.
So we're all confident that we don't need to take board action on that in any fashion?
Not based on
Well, she's got a lease on the one office. She's in there. She wants the other office that's empty. and we want to see what our needs are for us first before we move on that.
Okay.
That was kind of the resolution today, and I just emailed her.
So
to let
subject to
know.
her getting the proper insurance, she's very secure. We're all in consensus.
No, we're not at that point yet. We need to see what our needs are first in that
But the
area.
original building, or the original office space that she
She's
leased.
got that.
Okay, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
that has not been rescinded.
I think we can revisit that during commissioner comments, and
Okay.
maybe we can get a report. I think the community development director, Carolyn Johnson's been involved in that. I've been involved in that. Maybe
I
we'll
have,
just give a
you know-
report to the board at that
Correct.
time.
Okay. It was an insurance question, but we can deal with that
Sure.
at item number 12.
Thank you. I just have one more thing.
Okay.
We have 9 consent calendar items, and those numbers seem to be growing. So if we approve those all at one time, which is somewhat customary, it takes away time to discuss some of those issues, and I'm just.
Typically on consent calendar issues, okay, if one commissioner wants to pull one or more of those items out for discussion,
Okay.
it can be done during the agenda amendments, because I added up the time, and there were, 49 minutes had been assigned by the people who put those. They didn't make the decision to put them necessarily on the consent calendar, but they provided them for agenda discussion. So that's a lot of minutes for something that would not be discussed unless it's pulled out. So if you want to pull, or Commissioner Gold wants to pull any item out of consent calendar, we can do so, and then we can discuss those directly after item 6.
Okay.
So do you want to pull any of those out?
Does it have to be under the agenda amendment classification?
Well, it's our point to discuss, where to do that, so yeah.
You could do it under agenda amendment. You could also do it when we get to
When we get
consent
to it.
calendar.
True.
And what I've noticed here on our agenda, usually what I've seen with agendas that have a consent calendar, the very next item on the agenda is items removed from the consent calendar. And we don't have that space, but that's usually the process. You get to the consent calendar, the chair says, are there any items to be removed? And then individual commissioners say which items they want to speak on or hear more about. And then you ballot on the remaining that didn't have any questions, and then you move on to those. So it can be handled either way.
Either place.
I just don't want to feel rushed. I understand your concern of turning it into a full hour. I think that we can avoid
Well,
that.
no, I'm just saying, when I
If we
added the
did,
minutes
sure.
up, I saw 49 minutes.
Okay.
That's all. So let's do it at this point now under the agenda amendments. Would you like to remove any of those and pull any of those items out of the consent calendar?
I just want to make a quick comment on the ADA facilities through
Well,
county parks.
Okay,
if you want to.
so item F is going to be pulled out, and we're going to put that under 6. I'm going to call it following between 6 and 7. Okay. So we're going to remove item F. Move out. Commissioner Gold, do you have any?
I don't have any at this time, no.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Okay, I have on agenda amendments, I'd like to move the presentations, which we've done previously, not every time, but we've done previously. I'd like to move item 12, and both of them. One of them is an individual that's come down for a short presentation from SCDC from Coos Bay. So if we could move item 12 just following item 4, announcements, and before 5, public comments. That's where we've normally put it in the past, if that's okay.
So moved.
I second that.
Okay. Call for that question?
Aye.
Aye. And then I'd like to move
There was the vets.
item,
SCDC.
That's what he just moved.
Yeah.
I'd like to move item G, was formation of a Parks Advisory Committee. I'd like to move that out of the consent calendar also. Move out. So do we have any other county council?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yesterday, I was contacted by Curry Electric, and they submitted a quote to me, and the quote was something that we'd been waiting for a long time. It had to do with a switch. One of our switches failed, and it resulted in, anyway, a network slowness, for lack of a better term. And there's a sense of urgency of getting this switch ordered, and as Commissioner Boyce pointed out, we don't have another meeting till April, another almost 3 weeks. So I've submitted a late submittal to the board. It was an AGRS. It's at your places. I printed it out and put it at your places, but it's also, but it's essentially to purchase some switches and the service to install them. So that is something I'd request the board add to the agenda under either administrative action or perhaps even consent calendar unless the board has any questions.
I was in that meeting, and this gets the speed of the data back up basically 90%, because when this one router switch was not to get into the technical, but it was a lot of ports in that switch, and when they put the replacement in, which was a used switch, it reduced the bit rate as far as data from 1 gigabyte to 100 megabits, or 1 gigabit to 100 megabits. So it reduced it by 90%.
I got it.
So it's something we want to, as quickly as we were able to get the go-ahead to
So just request a motion to add
So
that
if
to
we
the
could-
agenda, Mr.
a
Chair.
I move
motion
that
then
we
to
put it on
add
the
it to
agenda.
to consent calendar.
Yeah,
Just one quick question. $12,000, is that what we're talking here? And
$10,460.
how about the life of that? Do we know, by chance, just a general?
I would say 5 to 10 years because of technology, but that would be my guesstimate.
That would prompt a question, is it guaranteed for a certain amount of time? I mean, switches don't normally wear out quick.
Well,
but I'm
there's
not-
also, and part of that, there's another piece that we had that will include replacement of the switch, but it's an annual maintenance agreement for all the hardware. But that's in that
Maybe it is
that
12.
IT room, not just
didn't know
the
if the
router.
Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And that will be approximately, from my memory, I think it was about $3,500 or $4,000 per year for all of the equipment. I'd say pretty much all. It doesn't count computers and things like that, but the switch type gear, the routers that are in the IT room now. And Dan Springer from this Curry Electric was very positive and his recommendation to do it that way versus in prior years where we've had maintenance agreements that didn't even include, not only support, but now this one does not include replacement, but it includes, support for all of that, that we've paid up to $20,000+ a year for some of that in the past. So he was very, very supportive and urged us to go that way for the
Well, I think,
support.
I think in order for our departments to be efficient, we need to get it up to speed.
So maybe we don't put it on the consent, we just add it to the agenda. We can have this discussion when it comes time to consider
If
the
you want
item.
to discuss any further, we could do that versus a consent.
We have a
calendar.
motion.
I move that we put it on the consent agenda, I think.
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Okay,
Okay.
so we call for that question?
Yes.
Thank you.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Okay. So do we have any other amendments?
That's all I had, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
So that one.
Good job on getting that to us yesterday, by the way.
And
I guess it does leave the question, Mr. Chair, excuse me. We did add the proclamation for the Vietnam veterans on the agenda. The question would be, where would you like that? I think,
I had just, go ahead.
well, proclamations are usually down at agenda item number 9, and I'm wondering if the board wanted to consider, as with the presentations, moving that up closer.
I would suggest that we do that.
I'm sorry, I thought that's what we were doing.
Yeah.
Yes, I would.
I would move that we do that.
Okay, so we got
Very
good
good.
consensus for
Thank
that.
you. All right.
Thanks,
Okay.
counsel.
Sure.
Last comment, now we have one speaker slip. If anybody else wants to submit a speaker slip, please do so now, because once we get into these items after that, if it's not been submitted, we won't accept it. So anyone else that wants to put a slip in now, please do so. Okay, on,
So do we
and
do
we've
it?
approved the agenda, or the,
Did you?
Not yet.
pardon me?
You added
We have
items to it, but
motion,
did
a
you-
motion to approve?
I move
As
that we
amended.
approve the agenda as amended.
Second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, there are no announcements. Public comments, there's one public comment card.
Mr. Chair? I'm sorry, you said there were no announcements, but we will be having a workshop on the 22nd to talk about the travel policy and also the budget discussion and the presentation from both the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee and our county accountant. That's on the 22nd. And then on the 29th will be a workshop about rules of decorum and then the county administrator. And I think in the future we'll try to put workshop topics on the announcements, but I thought those were fairly important.
Yeah, in the past, sometimes they used to, you know, in years past, they'd have them at the end, but I think that's a better place for them, and announcements up front.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chair.
Chair. So we have 4 items we're going to be discussing.
On 2 different meetings. So we're going to be discussing 2 items at each workshop.
You want to repeat the,
Thank you.
Topic,
On the 22nd, the 2 items will be draft travel policy, and then the other item will be the budget discussions, both from the Citizen Budget Advisory Committee and the county accountant. So that's on the 22nd. And then on the 29th will be a workshop to discuss decorum rules for the board to consider, as well as the board, we have the personnel director and myself have put together a job description and a county ordinance for the establishment of a county administrator position. It will not be adopted at that time. It will just be for board discussion at that time. And it's just a continuation of the work we've been doing on that topic. So it's just a next step in the process.
Thank you, Councilor Huddle. Mr. Chair.
okay, so back to public comments.
Chair.
Yes.
On the 22nd meeting, I did inform the board that I would be in a plane. I will be available from 10 o'clock to 11:30 by phone. I'm sure you can help me set that up. I'll be in the Seattle airport, and I'd appreciate if we could do the first item on the travel policy, and then I'll be able to review on the budget portion later on, so I should be able to catch up on everything I'll need to be informed of.
And that's anticipated right now between myself and the folks in the finance and the road department working on the travel policy, and then the county accountant. That's how we have it sussed out right now, is that we would do travel policy discussion first, and then the budget presentation from CBAC and the county accountant second and third. So.
And the staff in the commissioner's office would have the phone number. There's a special phone number to call in to this audio unit here that you'd come in on.
Yep.
So you can
Understand.
get that from them aside from.
Appreciate it
from
all.
the meeting.
You're welcome. That's all I had, Mr. Chair. Sorry about all the
Okay, oh, that's all right. Okay, I want to just say, okay, it's Mr. Ramirez. I'm not sure how to pronounce your first name, and then Becky Ross on the Vietnam Veterans Recognition.
Actually, it's Velan.
Oh,
Mrs.
Mr.
Ramirez.
Well,
Mrs.
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 or Ms.
Ramirez.
My apologies.
No, not at all.
And I'm Becky Ross for the board, and I live in Gold Beach, and I work for you guys. Okay, but today we're here on another matter, and I'll let Velan tell you about it. She's been working with the United States Department of Defense for a special celebration that's happening all over America.
Thank you. And again, thanks for squeezing us in, because my husband and sister and I came up from Haiuchi. So we appreciate it. I have to say that, again, we entered into a commemorative partnership with the Department of Defense, and I handed that out, and it'll explain what that's about. We are the Cape Sebastian Daughters of the American Revolution, and we've been working very closely with the Vietnam Veterans Association of America, I should say, here in Curry County to get this done. Today's proclamation is very important to these Vietnam veterans. And if you've got a half a second, I'd like to
There's
read.
no rush here.
Okay. I'd like to read an old allegory that's stuck with me for a long, long time. Two friends, Jim and John, were walking along a beach that had hundreds of sand dollars washed up onto the shore. Jim starts picking up sand dollars and flings them back into the water. John asks, "What are you doing?" Jim says, "I'm sending those sand dollars back to the water so they can survive." John says, "But there are hundreds of sand dollars. You can't save them all. What does it matter?" Jim looks at the sand dollar in his hand and says, "Yes, that's true, but it matters to this one. Today's proclamation matters to these guys." Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any comments? Further comments?
Yes, we've given the proclamation to Commissioner Boyce, if he would like to read it.
Mrs. Ross, thank you. Mrs. Ramirez, thank you. Veterans, could you please stand? Be on. Thank you. Raise your hand if you're a Vietnam veteran, please.
Vietnam era veteran? Yes.
Close enough.
Yes.
Big applause, please. My friends have heard me say, in fact, I think I said it here a couple months ago, that I missed Vietnam by just so little, and I really appreciate the effort between Del Norte and Curry County, and as most of you know, we have a large proportion of Vietnam veterans in Curry County, and many of them were combat veterans, and we just never want to forget. So thank you for the honor of letting me read this, and appreciate you coming today. Welcome home, Vietnam Veterans Day. Whereas on January 12, 1962, the United States Army assisted South Vietnamese military to capture a stronghold of Viet Cong in Saigon, marking America's first combat mission in Vietnam. Whereas more than 3 million men and women stood true in the uniform for more than a decade serving our nation, and veterans of many different backgrounds came together and bravely stood in harm's way, united in the preservation of liberty. Whereas thousands of Vietnam veterans returned home bearing the traumatic scars of battle, both physical and invisible. Whereas over 55,000 Vietnam soldiers were killed, and 1,624 Vietnam soldiers are still reported as missing in action. Whereas over half a century later, our Vietnam veterans and the millions who waited for their safe return still feel the anguish of losing their friends and loved ones. Whereas over 6,000 of these brave Vietnam veterans are residents of Curry County. Now, therefore, the County of Curry, in accordance with Oregon State Bill number 74 and United States Presidential Proclamation of 2012, hereby proclaims March 31st as Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day. We ask our citizens of Curry County to recognize and thank the Vietnam veterans for their sacrifices and heroism as guardians of freedom and liberty. I was in Washington, D.C. when I was a kid, 18 years old. Here's a Vietnam War Memorial, and that is the primary thing on my bucket list, is to return there someday. And you might even recognize some of the leaders in this photo. And a huge thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. And we have some extra invitations to the dinner on the 31st of March at the Chetco Grange. Hope you'll come. RSVP, and the information's here if anybody would like. Thank you again.
Okay, we had moved in the item number 12 on the presentations up. The first one was 12A that we've moved. It's Curry County Parks donation.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thank you for moving this up to this level of priority. On behalf of the Curry County Parks, I'm privileged to thank Sharon Lee Cummins and Rick Warren. They gave a very generous donation to the Curry County Park System that has really transitioned or given us the ability to work on new properties with the tools they provided, and some of the their wishes were that to make sure that it went to help parks, kids, and in the best way possible. And because parks and juvenile are merged together, it was a pretty perfect fit. There were several items that went to Brookings Harbor High School, and they are being utilized by their robotics class. They are looking at starting industrial arts the next term because now they have the equipment to do that, which is going to be fantastic for that community. They're the only one in Curry County that doesn't have that currently. Gold Beach and Port Orford do. And so it was a perfect fit to use some of those items to help kickstart and jump that program off the ground. They also made, there were several items that they donated that were equestrian related. They went to the 4-H clubs that the 4-H kids have absolutely benefited from. They had a big event 2 weekends ago, and they were able to utilize all these items, and it was just absolutely fantastic. The collateral impact of this donation will affect generations to come, and so I wanted to publicly present them with a certificate of appreciation for their generosity, and thank them publicly. So, Rick and Sharon. With the things that you've donated, in the total sum estimated at $76,800, it's going to make tremendous impact on our community, and I can't thank you guys enough.
Well, you're welcome. That's what we really wanted to be able to do.
For the kids.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you very
you.
much. Here are some letters from the 4-H youth. They put together a little presentation for you, and Brookings Harbor High School, and a letter from the county.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for letting us do that.
Yes, you. Anytime. Thank you for giving me the time to present.
I just know in Brookings that equipment's going to be well used. I'm a member of the school board, and things are going well. Thank you.
It already is. It's absolutely fantastic. I went down there. The robotics teacher was going bananas over this stuff. I mean, he had kids on these metal lathes creating components for their new robots, and it was pretty cool to see in
That's
action.
an amazing class.
You're going to be a student, aren't you?
I might be. Thank you.
Thanks.
The other presentation, again, what's on item 12 that we've moved up, is from the South Coast Development Council, SCDC, and it's the new, is it interim director or permanent interim?
Interim. Mr. Chairman, County Commissioners, my name is John Hitt. I'm the interim director for the South Coast Development Council. This is my second term in that office. I was filled to that function about 3 years ago. In fact, my first trip, I think, to Curry County was just about 3.5 years ago, and enjoyed my interfacing with Curry County folks and businesses then in roughly a 7-month period when I served as interim director. Then I participated in the hiring of Connie Stouffer, who was a permanent director, and so I had the kind of unusual situation of welcoming Connie to her first day on the job and then saying goodbye to her on her last day on the job, but none of the days in between. But the board is South Coast Development Council Board, which consists of both public partners like yourselves and City of Coos Bay and several of the cities and counties in our area, the South Coast area, as well as private partners, both larger businesses, smaller businesses, Southwest Oregon Community College, various workforce training groups, and et cetera. Our joining purpose of the organization is to function together in a cohesive way to promote economic development in the entire South Coast region. How do we do that? Well, there's a variety, and I won't take your time today. I know you have a very busy schedule. Maybe I can come back at a future time with a little, dog and pony show to give you a better handle on that. But three of the chief things we do is recruit businesses from outside our area to consider the South Coast as a place, as a home for their new business or business relocation. So in that process, we work very closely with Biz Oregon, which is the state outreach organization, as well as nationwide economic development organizations and site selector organizations, to make sure they are aware of economic development business opportunities in Oregon's South Coast. And we do that through internet connections. We do that by attending conferences and trade shows and a variety of outreach outside of our area. The second big area is business retention and expansion. We want to closely nurture and encourage the growth and expansion of existing businesses in the South Coast. So we have a variety of programs, and again, I'll come back another time and give you some more detail of those programs to help assist keeping those businesses viable, and for those that are able or interested in growing, to help facilitate that growth process. And the last major prong, and there's several other more minor ones, but the last major prong is entrepreneurial startup support. So we want to encourage those residents in the South Coast area that are interested in starting a business or interested in exploring the start of a business to help them through that process, help them find funding, help them find the training they need. And part of that project is we are in the process now of trying to do a business incubator. We hope to have that up and running in the Coos Bay area sometime next year. And we hope to do, our long-term goal is to do a similar project in the Brookings area. In fact, I have a meeting with a Brookings city manager tomorrow to that very end. Why is economic development important? And I'll give it to you in a summary in two brief things from my experience. And I've served in local government and economic development in all three West Coast states for over 30 years. And so I have a pretty good handle on the connectivity between government and the private sector. Sometimes they're looked at as enemies or opponents, that somehow the public sector should beat down the private sector, and the private sector in turn should blast those government people for not doing their job or for wasting money. I think in my experience, the truth of the situation is radically different. Economic development brings jobs, which is crucial to any city, any county, anywhere in the world. You're not going to have a viable city or county without a job base that can be sustainable and provide employment for local citizens. So we want to bring quality jobs, good paying, family wage jobs to the South Coast area, either again through internal growth or bringing those businesses in from the outside. The second thing that why business and government are such close partners here is that the tax base. Government survives, particularly local governments, survive primarily, depends a little bit what part of the country you're in and what city or county you're in, but primarily through the property tax. So one of the things that's vital to maintaining a strong property tax flow is new development and improved and expanded development. So those benefits can help, obviously, private citizens in bringing new jobs or opportunities as business owners but from the public sector brings new revenues, sources of revenue that would not have been there without that business either growing or that new business relocating into the area. So we work very closely with all governmental entities in the South Coast area. We work closely with people, planning directors and community development directors, people like your Carolyn Johnson, city managers throughout the region, because one of the things our organization really wants to do is to be a tool that brings the type of development and the quantity of development that is consistent with your local goals and desires. One of the things I'd like to offer you, we're glad that Carolyn serves on our South Coast Development Council board. I think we're going to have board re-elections here, I think in June. So we'd love to have any of you participate on our board, or other members of your staff that you think would be important or beneficial to serve on our South Coast Development Council staff. So you will be seeing me again. I hate to scare you like that or threaten you, but you will be seeing me again. And at any time, I had the opportunity, of course, to meet you all before the meeting. I was glad for that, give you my card. If you feel at any time that there is any way that we can be of assistance to you, please let me know, or a member of my staff know. Our offices, of course, are in Coos Bay, but we're happy and we plan on being down here, either myself or another member of my staff, several times a month consistently. So you will see either myself or one of us here on a fairly regular basis. But if at any time you hear or aware of a business that's thinking about going out of business, or a business that would like to expand but doesn't quite know how to find financing or maybe a place to expand, or you think you or come across a piece of property that you believe might be a good opportunity for future business relocations there. In fact, Carolyn Johnson and I are going to go look at such a piece of property just in a few minutes. So we want to be aware of those opportunities. So we welcome contact with you at any time. And again, we're happy to come down here and meet with any of you or with any member of your community at pretty much any time that you would like us to be here. So again, I'm glad to be of service to Curry County, at least for the next several months, while we work on the process of recruiting a permanent replacement. And those ads, by the way, should be coming out sometime next month. So if you know of anybody that you think would be a good economic development director, executive director, please also encourage them to apply for that position when it comes open. So barring any questions you have for me, I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
Mr. Hitt. Director Hitt,
Oh, yes, sorry.
congratulations and welcome back.
Oh, thank you.
Just a quick question. Competition between Curry County and Coos County, a normal thing. I know you know Coos County pretty well.
Yes.
So how would you, not to put you in the spot here, but just, I'm interested in, and you said you would also come down often, and sometimes we get down here in our little corner of Oregon and we go, where is our help? So I'm sure you're up on that.
Yeah. Well, when I started here 3 years ago, I was, again, experienced. I served in economic development, local government in the LA County area north of Seattle for a good many years, and then most recently in Lebanon, Lane County, Albany, Oregon. So I'm pretty familiar with what works and what doesn't work, and where opportunities lie and where it's going to be more of a struggle. But I really was bullish on the South Coast from the moment I first arrived here 3.5 years ago. So I think there are, even despite the obvious geographic isolation and the issues of transportation connectivity, there are still some great opportunities here for future growth. I think example of Brookings, where they took advantage of a resource growth there, or it could be non-resource related, or it could be tourism related. There are definite things that I think Curry County can take advantage of, and that will see some noticeable economic growth. Now, the word of warning I always give there, economic development is a slow process. So it doesn't happen within just a few months. Sometimes it takes many years. But one of the good things, I was on my statistics day before yesterday, unemployment rate in Curry County has come down substantially from when I was here 3.5 years ago. So of course I'll take credit for that. No. Unlike some people in government, I try not to take credit where credit is not due, which would be the case here. But the good news for you and your citizens is that that unemployment rate is down substantially. It's still too high. I know you and my organization, myself personally, want to see that come down a lot lower than what it is. But at least I think, and same thing with Coos County, progress is starting to be seen, progress is being made. We have a lot better handle on what are, for example, what are developable lands in both counties. When I came 3.5 years ago, I started asking around, well, what's available in the way of industrial land in particular? And mostly I got a bunch of shrugged shoulders. Well, I think there's a site over here, or maybe there's something down up in Coquille, and maybe something down in Brookings, not really sure. So when I was here, we started that process of inventorying and being really aware of what's available. We still have some fine tuning we have to do in that, but basically, at least now, we have a good handle on where economic development can best occur in both counties. Kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but I hope
You did fine.
Okay. Thank you. All right, have a good afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Agenda item 6, which is the consent calendar, and we have remaining on that agenda item 6A, B, C, D, E, H, and I. We've removed items F and G. So do we have a motion to approve those remaining items on the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the remaining items on the consent calendar.
All 5 seconded.
Okay. Any further comments? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move to agenda item, which we've pulled out of this, but we'll just call it now, let's just call it still 6F, which is the ADA Facilities Upgrade Grant for Boyce Cope Park. And Parks, 10 minutes. I don't know if Director Trost wants to come up. Now, you had wanted to move this one out. You want to open with comments, or?
Actually, I just wanted to congratulate him on the
Okay.
$112,000 grant. That's just a super thing for the county, and more to his success, and just greatly appreciate what he's doing in parks, and I hope we can, and we'll see more of that down the road. Great job.
Okay. Do you have any comments on
No.
that? I have many comments and questions on the grant document. Do you want to come up, or Director Trost? And part of the reason that I've gone into this one is some of the other grants that we've had discussions. I've had discussions with the accountant. I've had discussions with county council. Yesterday we had, trying to work with the city of Brookings on the Brookings Airport and some grants there. We had, I spoke at length with the accountant, county accountant on that. And there, we do not have, in general, a good handle on grants once we get them. We don't deal with them, and some of the surprises that we're coming back with are ugly financially. Not to go into detail, but the surprise yesterday on a Brookings, on the status of grants from Brookings, is that the county accountant, once all the numbers are in, and she's still waiting for numbers, we're going to have to come up, well, it could be anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 or more $1,000 out of the general fund somewhere to make up for things that, had it been properly administered, we would have been able to recoup those costs. And that's just one grant. We talked about another one on Head Start program on it. That's also, we're not sure where we're at on that. County council and the county accountant are working on that. But in general, what we have to do is, I think, get the county accountant to play a much more critical role in participating in these, so we don't have any more of these surprises, because this was not a good surprise yesterday at all, not at all.
Excuse me,
So-
we're on the airport grant?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I've gone through, well, last night and this morning, I've gone through, do you have a copy of that in
Yes.
front of you? Okay, I've gone through and I have several questions.
Hopefully I can answer them.
And one certainly gets a question, but I hope that the accountant plays a very instrumental role in making sure that this is administered properly on this grant. On the let me go back to other comments. On the document as was provided, it's showing the grantee, which is the county. The administrator would be Director Trost. The grantee representing the county would be an individual this is her last day. What's the plan?
It's already, I've already worked with Mark on that,
Okay.
Mr. Cohen, the
And-
administrator.
And who will be doing that at this time?
The
for
billing
county?
contact went to me.
Okay. On attachment A, number 2, in compliance with the workers' compensation laws, it's saying all employers, including the grantee, are required, with one exception under a particular statute, which I don't believe applies, but that shall be responsible for liability insurance coverage of not less than $500,000. Is that all in place?
I would have to defer to county council on the legal language that was put into, this was their standard terms that they send.
I understand.
Now, this is a very, well, I can say we recently received this grant in 2015, and we complied with all of the issues or terms at that time as well. So I think
You want to come up? And that goes with this question is, what is the cost to the county? Is there an additional insurance coverage cost? You want to identify your?
Louise Kallstrom, County Accountant. This is a very common part of grants and other contracts, a lot. And what it requires really is a certificate of insurance from
Correct.
our insurance company, and we are usually, I don't think it requires extra insurance. I have not looked at our policy, but it is usually a common amount, so it's usually already part of our insurance policies. But I would have to look for sure to make sure.
That's, because again.
But it's not usually a high number for our insurance policies. It's usually, I've never seen it outside.
The point is it in place? Because we talked on the airport yesterday, we have hangars out there and we have people leasing them that don't have insurance. Contractually, they're supposed to. County Council?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at the clock. On our agenda, we have a public hearing scheduled for 11 a.m. And so we're coming up to that hour. This might be appropriate to continue, perhaps, if the chair wanted to, during a recess. I think confirming these insurance amounts would be a fairly straightforward matter.
And that's just one of many items
I understand.
on this.
So what I'm proposing is that, when you say you have many items, I just wanted to make sure that we conducted the
Correct.
public hearing when it was noticed, and I just wanted to be mindful of that. So it's up to the chair. If the chair wants to continue, sure, but we could also.
We can come back to this.
Thank you. Okay.
We have 6 minutes
Definitely.
too.
We do
can come back.
have 6 minutes, so.
But
just
no,
wanna let
county
you know.
council's correct, and it's shown as 11 a.m., and that we do have to stop, to open that
But
public
however the
hearing.
chair wants to
Okay.
proceed, I just want to just.
Come back, well, we can come back to, let me continue with a few more of these questions here.
Good.
And we'll just be mindful of the time.
I would like to just offer this as well. Before we applied for this grant, it was brought before this board for approval to apply with these terms and conditions in place. So it has been reviewed once before as well, so.
And to that, I would plead, okay, not reviewing well enough on my part based on what I've learned with some grant issues that we have now, and I certainly will look at them a lot closer, and I hope everybody looks at them a lot closer in the future based on the surprises that we had just yesterday on grant administration. On page 1 of 3 under attachment A, item 6 on the use of the property, does this requirement, because this spells out how long this property is to be dedicated for this use, it's 20 years, does this preclude, or do you know that this precludes the county from leasing the park to a private vendor to operate?
I wouldn't know that. It would
Okay.
probably be a legal
That
counsel.
would be another question that I would have of county council, not necessarily for an answer here, but I'm curious.
Well, just, thank
on
you.
that. Okay.
What it says is that it has to be used for this purpose, and then if we wanted to do a lease, it would have to be something that could be approved by Oregon Parks and Rec.
They would have to then approve it, but it's possible with their approval.
Yep, that's just, and, we can only answer that question in the abstract because we're not
Correct.
faced with the
Correct.
specifics of another lease and those.
On the second paragraph under 6, it's who is going to be recording this instrument? Do we know who's going to be recording it?
I'm trying to see if I understand your question.
Well, it's saying land acquired using local government funds shall be dedicated by an instrument recorded in the county records for recreational use. So how does that occur, or when does that occur? And who's responsible for it?
We would be responsible for that.
When you say we, like from the legal
Oh,
department?
Thank
or-
you. The Parks Director is the administrator of the grant, so ultimately it's his responsibility to do that. Legal would serve him, and then the clerk
Okay.
would also physically, mechanically handle the recording. And then the only other question there is, some of our, now this says land acquired using local government grant funds, and I just don't know that we will be
Okay.
acquiring any land under this grant. This is just
No.
so that may
May or
technically
may
not apply.
Okay. I think, looking at the clock now, it's 10:58, so let's
Continue.
continue, and then we'll move into the public hearing, which is agenda item 8. It's for the FedEx annexation into Harbor Sanitary District. And County Council, do you want
I can give a
to
staff
open
report.
with this?
Yes, I'll give a
Okay.
staff report. So we have a application. This is the item that the board is, before the board is a public hearing, and it's on an application by a property owner. I think the agenda item says FedEx. I don't think FedEx is the owner. I think the owner is, Walt Harder. And so when a person who has property, and in this case it's sewer services, Harbor Sanitary District. When they want to develop, they need to have, you know, sewer services for public health, safety, and welfare. And this piece of property currently is in the county, and it's not in any district that provides those. And there are two ways of getting this sewer service, is through a contract with the Harbor Sanitary District or to annex in. And this property owner has requested to annex in. When a property owner requests to annex in, there doesn't need to be a petition. Perhaps some of the board or some of the public is familiar with the idea of you need a petition to form or become part of a district. When it's just one property owner, they can just do an application and then we don't need a petition. But it does have to be approved by the Harbor Sanitary District Board, and it has been. And once that happens, it's sent to us for review. We reviewed the petition to see that it complied with the Principal Act, and that usually means having a legal description of the property and the proper exhibits to show what property is coming into the district. And then the other part about it is that, lost my train of thought a little bit, but let me see if I can pull up the item on the agenda here to refresh my recollection of that. We have a public hearing. Oh, the other thing is there is some information in the packet. The board has to make a finding that it complies with our comprehensive plan, and for that purpose we had the Community Development Director, Carolyn Johnson, review the application, and she did submit documentation that the application was consistent with our comprehensive plan. So for those things, that it complies with the act and that it meets our comprehensive plan, those are the two findings that the board needs to make to adopt this. And that's what the topic of the public hearing and the comments should be related to when any public members speak. So that's all I had. I also understand we received a written submission, but not, I don't know if they are here. Oh,
Yes.
we do. Okay, so there you are. So,
And we received a written comment also from the city of Brookings.
City of Brookings, and
yesterday, I
yep.
believe.
And I don't know if they provided that to the applicant or not, but usually the applicant gets a chance to respond to that written submission. And I personally did not bring my copy of that here, and I don't know if the applicant received that. So anyway, with that, Mr. Chair, that's all I had, unless there's questions, and then I think it's appropriate to open the public hearing and take testimony.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, well, you are the applicant, is that correct?
I'm the applicant's agent.
Okay, do you want to come up to the podium and identify yourself, please?
Hi. Good morning. My name is Eric Oberbeck, and I'm the agent for the applicant, Art. Excuse me.
Did you receive a letter from the City of Brookings?
I have not received a letter.
I don't
from the
recall
city.
seeing a CC even on the letter. It's a...
Well, if you like, I can go get my copy and provide it to you. If
That would
that's
be
okay.
great, yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'll just excuse myself. I'll be
Okay.
right back.
Okay.
Good job.
You better hang around until
Wow.
you've done here.
All right. Okay, thank you. Like I said, my name is Eric Oberbeck, and I am the agent for the applicant. This property, we are asking that the board approve annexation into the Harbor Sanitary District. It has already, the Sanitary District Board has approved the petition by the county, and so they're in agreement and are willing to offer service to do this. I've got a map of the property and other properties surrounding it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, great. As you can see from that map, as Councilman Huddle, County Council Huddle said, it is in the Brookings urban growth boundary. The property is zoned commercial. Harbor Water does provide service to the property. And again, the sanitary district has approved acceptance into the Harbor Sanitary District. A little bit of background, FedEx has been looking for a suitable site in Curry County for a ground shipping facility since 2013. After 2 years unsuccessful, they bought this property, and that required that we come before the board and make application to rezone the property from R5 to commercial, which we did in December of 2015. That was approved. We subsequently partitioned the property. The map for the partition was submitted to the county surveyor, and it was approved on January 12th of 2017. The county assessor, county clerk, and community development have all looked at and approved that, and so this is the last step in our process. Looking just over this letter from the city of Brookings, it looks like the city of Brookings, they're asking for a district's engineer concerning the current level of flow into the interceptor main, but I believe that is that for the sewer. That's wastewater treatment sample. Excuse me while I read this. I'm not sure why the city of Brookings would have concerns if it's the Harbor Sanitary District's sewer line.
If I think I
The
looked at
sewage
that.
goes into the city treatment plant.
Well, I think I also looked at it. It seemed like they said the pipe crosses their boundaries or something. Again, I just was reading it while I was walking here.
Yeah, I don't have really intercepting which is shared capacity. I'm wondering, they're not talking about the storm drain. I'm assuming
No,
they're talking
no.
about the sanitary sewer.
I think, again, not to speculate only, you know, there have been ongoing issues back and forth for years between Harbor Sanitary and the city of Brookings. And I think this is,
Okay.
in my opinion, my comment to county council, this is between the city of Brookings and Harbor Sanitary,
That sounds reasonable.
not
think,
this board.
Right, and I think, Mr. Chair, your analysis fits within some of my opening comments, was that we're looking to see if it complies with the comprehensive plan, which our community development director has already provided the board that it does, and also whether it complies with the Principal Act and, you know, the landowner submittal, the approval by the Harbor Sand. So I think for the record, the board can take the letter into the record, but nevertheless, if the board chooses to approve this, I think it could still find that the application has complied with the Principal Act and meets our comp plan.
Okay, thank you very much.
So are we ready for a motion?
Well, I'm not sure.
That's
No,
all I've got.
we have to open this to public comment, too.
Okay, thank
We
you.
will open this to public comments. So if anyone in the audience wishes to comment on this issue, please come forward.
Just had one thing. Mr. Overbeck, I think you have my copy of that letter. Can you provide that to...
Could you run down to Kinko's
provide it
real
to
quick?
Summer Madison over there, please? Thank you. And we can get you a copy. Okay. Sorry, Mr. Chair, that's all I had.
That'll be 25 cents.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I see having no public comment, we'll close the public comment period.
So just request a motion.
And now entertain a motion to approve this.
I'll move, Mr. Chair, that we approve the annexation to the Harbor Sanitary District.
I'll second that.
Any further comments? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that will
Yep,
end this public hearing
yep.
on the annexation.
So I think I saw Jay Trost in the, oh, there he is.
There he is.
We'll come back to what was agenda item 6F.
We left off on the second paragraph of number 6, I believe.
Correct. It shows obviously the project start date of March 1st and a project end date of March 31st. So has that, that's not going to happen. clearly because
Oh.
it's March 15th.
No. It's March 31st of 2019 it has to be completed by. If you look on
Okay,
page
well,
one,
it's saying,
agreement period.
it's saying March 31st of 2017 here in the application.
It's under the project
On
information
one of
page.
six.
on the agreement,
okay.
the agreement is March 31st,
Okay.
2019.
But the application shows March 31st of 2017.
Okay. That must have been a misprint, a mistake.
Okay. So that's 2019.
19. It's a 2-year
Okay.
time period to finish your grant.
Can I ask what page we're on, please?
In the agenda, you're on page, are you looking at
Or
your
page
computer?
1 of 6 on attachment B. I'm not sure what the,
This is on page 39.
Okay,
and
I got it.
40.
okay.
Thank you.
We're talking about 42, but also if you look, so the
Oh.
chair has mentioned the project end date of 3/31/2017 on page 42 in your digital or the
On the
agenda packet.
application.
Yep, and that's the grant application summary form, and that says project end date 3/31/2017. But on the agreement, the first page of the agreement, which is on page 39, on page, 37 of your agenda packet, where it has agreement period, it does say the project shall be completed by March 31st, 2019 in bold,
So the projected start date, that's in question, the projected start and finish dates. That was the numbers that I put in because I wanted, if we were going to do it before the season started, before the shoulder season started. However, working with some individuals and doing some cost, adjustments and trying to value engineering is, I guess, the right term, to value engineer this a little bit better. And plus, the weather in March wasn't conducive to even begin the idea of starting. And that's what a lot of construction people have told me. Plus, a lot of the construction people that I've talked to are booked out until next fall. But we do have that. So that was projected when I applied.
Okay. On the application on page 3 of 6, on item number 2 on the project description, it was where is the project located, what work will be done, who will do the work, and who will provide supervision. The response to that question, to the last 2 parts of the question, were not answered. So who is going to do the work and who's going to provide the supervision?
Well, in terms of who will do the work, we still have to get our bid process. We have to bid it out.
Be going out for with requests for
Right.
quotations or proposals.
So we have to get 3 bids on that because it is a project over the amount for that. And I would be supervising the completion of the project. So, yeah, okay.
Again, I just asked because I didn't see the answers in the application to the questions.
Mr. Trost, when do you expect to have the bids out? What, do you have a hopeful date there?
We're going to work the bidding process over the next few months, and we're looking to get construction rolling in the next shoulder season, which would be in that September-October window. We obviously can't do it during the busy season, so, and it's really hard to do during the wet season.
And that showed the same thing. That showed the 2017 in under 2B, which you're saying is not 2017, it's 2019.
Well, the projected end date is what you're saying.
Correct.
So the completion date, we would adjust to, I would just put December of 2017. We should get this done by the end of this year.
On page 4 of 6, and this goes both to this, like one of my questions or my comments or observations here goes also to, and we'll pick it up when we discuss it, to the formation of the Parks Advisory District. But 5 said planning and public involvement, and this was approximately 10 points or 10% weighted of the 100% in this particular response to this answer. It says, please describe any planning and public involvement efforts that led to the selection of the project, including citizen involvement through public workshops, meetings, and hearings. And the response there was there have been no public workshops, meetings, or hearings with regard to the project. And then it went on to say that there'd been feedback from people who were camping there, but again, no public involvement or committees. And I'll comment a little bit further on that when we get to the item on, you know, wanting to form now committees to discuss things. Why wasn't a committee formed here for some public input?
Because
Seems
it was
like double,
it
you know,
w-
we
we're
do
not-
it one way here and a different way.
Well, no, I think that a lot of these questions are catch-alls for all different projects.
True.
This is a project where we're taking a current structure and renovating it up to ADA standards.
Good.
It's not a point of where you know looking to create a new park in public lands or things of that nature where you would obviously look for input.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
County Council?
Thank you. So in the future, if the board does establish a Parks Committee, I mean, part of the answer is we don't have a Parks Committee, and to form an ad hoc committee for, you know, rebuilding a bathroom may or may not make sense. But regardless, if the board does adopt an order to create a Parks Committee, would this be the type of business that they would see in the future?
Absolutely. So, I mean, part of that discussion would have been with a Parks Committee would have been discussing what we would be wanting to look for and applying in our future grants towards development, restoration, or you know, building maintenance, things of that nature. There would have been a lot of discussion and recommendations to the boards along those lines.
And then these, like you said, are catch-all. The answer that was given, you know, that this has been comments from people, but that we haven't used a park board or citizen committee, and we didn't have development of a park master plan. These are all factors that the grant awarding agency considered and nevertheless is awarding us the grant.
Correct. They obviously they value the need to have upgraded facilities for to meet the needs of all people.
On also page 4 of 6 of, what was that, Exhibit B? Environmental assessment, and then that will flow to page 5. And specifically, number D, it says, what agencies or persons did you contact to determine environmental impacts? Please list agencies, persons contacted. And then there was also a letter of, I want to say, addressing some concerns from Dennis Griffin, a state archaeologist. But the name that was used there was Eric Hansen, Curry County Maintenance. And again, the question is, what agencies or persons did you contact to determine environmental impacts? What environmental impacts were identified, and what are Eric Hansen's qualifications to be identifying things like that? And I raise this question because of the issue in part that we're facing now in Flores Lake on this weir issue with all the environmental or all the federal agencies, all the state agencies that come out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden we have something that didn't really maybe appear on the surface to be of any consequence that's now morphed into what might be a 3-year, $300,000 liability to, in great part, to the county. So, but my question goes back, what environmental impacts were identified, and what are Eric Hansen's qualifications?
So Eric Hansen's qualifications are he used to manage much of the parks previously prior to it coming over to juvenile in conjunction with Mr. McGinnis, and he has all of the historical data from those time points. And so he had information on environmental impacts to the park that I had referenced to. So I went to him for those documents that he had already had since from years prior.
So
Mr. Chair.
were those documents provided, or county, is anybody involved in the county council? Do you have any concerns like I do when we get into environmental impacts? And this letter from the state archaeologist raising concerns. Says it appears there have been no previous surveys completed near the proposed project. The project area lies within a generally perceived area to have high probability for possessing archaeological sites and buried human remains. Extreme caution is recommended. If you have not already done so, be sure to consult with an appropriate Indian tribes regarding the proposed project. If the project has a federal nexus, i.e. federal funding, permitting, or oversight, please coordinate with the appropriate lead federal agency.
One thing at a time, please, Mr. Chair.
Okay, well, I'm
It's in
reading
the-
from the
it's in the letter. Yeah.
the same letter.
Sure.
It's
It's
in
on
this,
page
Okay.
48 of our agenda packet.
And it's the same concern based on what we're going through right now on this other Flores Lake issue. Is this Pandora's box waiting to open up?
Mr. Chair.
Let me ask county council here first.
So
Again, I'm not after firm, but I'm voicing concern based on what we have experienced here.
So it is a good question. I think the differences between the restroom remodel and what I'll call, for lack of a better word, in-water work at the outfall of Flores Lake to New River, they're just different. So to try to make a direct analogy between the restroom remodel and the Flores Lake work, slightly, actually very different on a lot of different levels.
I agree.
And for instance, we're not going to be dealing with a water right permit for impounding, such as the OWRD, and we're not going to be dealing with in-water work from the Department of State Lands or NOAA or any of the several agencies we're dealing on that. But at the same time, the one thing that this person says, they haven't, and I'm looking at Mr. Griffin, his PhD RPA state archaeologist's letter, and this is fairly common on construction items. It says, if archaeological objects or sites are discovered during construction, all activities should cease immediately until a professional archaeologist can evaluate the discovery. So those are some fairly common terms whenever you're digging in a place. And what he says is it's generally perceived a high probability of processing archaeological sites and buried human remains. He hasn't identified that we have a particular site. So what he just says is, we're put on notice, and if the general contractor who does the work, and the state law, the law on discovering archaeological sites says that if the person doing the work discovers them, they have to cease. So the law, the ORS 358-905, that we've looked at this law in other projects that we're doing, but it's a standard provision. If you find something, like he said, human remains or archaeological objects, the law says that the person doing the work has to stop and notify the state archaeology and the state historical, I think, is what this person is from. It's the State Historic Preservation Office. So, and he is affiliated with the State Parks and Recreation Department, which is the entity who's actually giving us the grant award. So the people giving us a grant award are identifying these as concerns they have after looking at our application. So really,
And in addition to the Indian tribes, and I know, there's a lot of that in the area.
yep, no, there is,
Definitely.
and that's what they're putting us on notice of. And it says, be sure to consult with Indian tribes regarding your proposed project. So that would be an ongoing condition of the grant. And so if we are awarded this grant, if the board accepts it, then I think the direction to the Parks Director would be to outreach to the tribes to make them aware that we'll be doing some work. I haven't seen the plans for the remodel. I'm not sure if this is an above-ground remodel where...
Yeah, we were looking to take the existing foundation.
Okay.
So there won't be any
There
digging.
may be some earthwork, or they're not anticipated earthwork?
Well,
We're building a bathroom,
Right.
right?
We're
well,
remodeling.
we're
I think.
remodeling.
Let me
one.
know if you find any of my relatives in there, okay?
We're remodeling.
Okay. I mean, this is a bathroom, and can I speak now?
Well, just,
we have
just
more?
a minute.
No. John
Right,
Johnson,
I
you
do.
still have the floor.
Yeah,
The septic, the plumbing is already plumbed in. We were looking to try to use the existing infrastructure
Okay.
and use the foundation that's there to build on with new ADA compliant toilets, compliant sinks, doorways.
right, grab bars, those kind of
Yes.
things. Right. So some of that, again, doesn't raise a lot of red flags with as far as the, on the federal level, the NAGPRA, and on the Native American Great Protection Act, and on the Oregon, the same corresponding state law. So again, good questions, but I don't know that there's a huge risk of, another, I'll just call it another Flores Lake.
Yeah.
So.
Could I speak for 1 minute?
Well, Commissioner
Oh,
Boyce
okay.
was next. Commissioner Boyce?
I'm going to take exception to you questioning Mr. Chair Eric Hansen's qualifications. He's one of the toughest outdoor guys I know, one of the staunchest environmentalists I know in the right sense, and cares about this area very much. He's very invested, and he's a terrific resource for this county. And apparently the people that qualified us for this grant didn't see any concern that he didn't have a PhD after his name. As far as the Weir project, I appreciate that you reference that again. However, I think long-term we're going to prevail in that because there was no, in my view, major missteps from our people in that process early on. And I don't think it's your intent. I just don't want to feel like they're being berated a year or two after for trying to do the right thing. That's my personal opinion, but it needed to be stated right then. Thank you.
Commissioner Gold?
Mr. Trost, I just wanted to make sure that if we are using the existing foundation, then basically there's going to be no digging and
Yeah.
okay.
There
That would
was,
cut back on the liabilities considerably, I would think.
It would. I mean, in terms of the archaeological study, we may, depending on the contractor and the bid that we go with, and there could. I'm not going to say there couldn't be digging. The goal at this point is to use the existing foundation because I feel that it will be too expensive to uproot the existing foundation and all of the infrastructure that's with that to build a new
Right.
one.
Is it a concrete foundation?
Yes.
Okay.
Just a quick comment, response to Commissioner Boyce. As far as the qualifications of Eric Hansen, this is not to do with Eric Hansen as Eric Hansen. This is when I see a contract and it asks me what agencies or persons did you contact to determine environmental impacts, I would expect that we would have somebody that would be qualified in that area, because if there were issues afterwards and we didn't have, we would be at fault, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair, I give you the benefit of the doubt there, but it did sound like that you were disqualifying him, and so that's why I took exception.
I would disqualify him as being qualified to act, as an expert for environmental impacts, yes, just as I would do myself or anybody else sitting here.
Right. The only qualification I'm aware of for Mr. Hanson is that he is our county ADA compliance officer, and this is a ADA-related function, and
But his
that's where it makes
qualifications
sense.
go way beyond that.
Oh, okay. And Eric is not here today. There's another item later on that he wanted to be involved in, but he's not present. So otherwise, we
So
could
those were
ask him.
my comments or my concerns, and certainly to have the accountant absolutely involved in this grant from start to finish financially, so we don't have repeat prior mistakes. County Council.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. One question I had, I think this grant is called a reimbursement grant.
Yes.
And does that mean that we actually spend the money first and then apply for reimbursement?
Yes.
So even though our contribution is a 25% match, originally we're going out ahead of that and spending the whole amount.
Yeah, they're really good about getting us as soon as we pay for a certain piece of the project, we submit that, they reimburse it. The turnaround time is fantastic.
And that's based on your experience with this agency in the past on other projects you work with them on?
Correct.
Okay, thanks. But I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of that this was one where, that we're committing to a 25% match, but there's this kind of other part of the commitment where we're spending first.
And it
asking
can go south.
Sure.
I talked to an individual on a similar scenario, and all of a sudden that everybody was sure that the state agency had the money, and there was a hiccup. It turned out they didn't, and all of a sudden this I think it was a city in this case, was on the hook for several $100,000 for like a year and a half until finally they recouped it. So it can happen.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner
Do
Boyce?
they have a direct access to the contractor, or
The grant administrator?
Yes.
Yes.
they do?
I do.
No.
So-
Does the grant administrator have a direct access to the contractor?
No.
Well, there isn't.
Thank you.
No, okay.
Yeah,
I assume, just want to make sure.
oh, okay.
Okay, I had no further comments.
No further comments.
So we're just looking for a motion.
So we
on
have
that
a
item.
motion?
Is there one?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I'll
A
second
motion
it.
to, what, a motion to,
Accept the grant.
okay, who made the motion then? Commissioner Boyce?
It's a toss-up.
Okay, so your motion is,
To accept the grant for $112,000, the ADA improvements, the Boyce Cove Park.
I'll second that.
any further discussion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. On item G, which was formation of a Parks Advisory Committee, again, I was the one that asked to pull this out. At this time, given that this county has so many committees, they don't know even who started them, in many cases, who's a member of them, what they're doing, what they're not doing, and some of the financial suggestions that are have come back in through this Budget Advisory Committee. It's my suggestion at this time that we not, because we have two different motions, I think, or two different topics on here to form an additional two committees. There's another one down under new business. I think until we get through the budget process and approve whatever the reduced budget is going to be and how that's going to be reflected, I don't think we need to become involved with additional committees at this time. That's my opinion, be it a Parks Committee or a Consumption Tax Advisory Committee or any other such committee, until we get through with this budget process and see there are suggestions as far as consolidation. I've seen some, that were in regards to, and again, these were just suggestions. This is nothing that's occurred, but I think these are suggestions that will be discussed in the coming weeks, and I just don't think it's a good time to start setting up more committees. Specifically on this one, there were, I think, 5 parcels that were referenced. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. My question, and this is my only question on that, parks property needing to be developed, were all of these recommended in the process of looking at the county-owned properties? And could you, as a follow-up, just provide the documentation for these 5 specific properties for that?
These were part of the property task force that the board approved to put in as parks property. And so that's why they are listed. I would just offer this to the commissioners is the parks has no general fund contributions, so it's not a general fund budget funded department. And, you know, so in regards to budget discussions, I mean, if outsourcing the park was on the table, then yes, then maybe the Parks Committee should be, you know, postponed because it would be, you know, just being formed if it's looking to outsource. I would hope that not to be the case since it is a revenue generator for our county, but if it is, that would be one reason why I could see postponing the park.
And that's one reason that I use as far as a possibility. I've seen some reference to that possibility in consolidation. So those are my comments.
So I have one
Commissioner-
question.
Commissioner
If we
McCoy.
were to postpone this a little bit, say until after budget, would that severely impact your Parks Department?
I mean, severely is pretty broad. It definitely prohibits kind of some momentum moving forward, because, you know, I was really looking to have this body assist with creating the master plan for our future county park properties and developing, you know, our 5-year plan in terms of how these are going to be developed and provide input on this upcoming grant cycle and things of that nature, which, I mean, so have we done without? Yes.
When is the grant cycle starting?
Can we continue? They actually open it up here, I think, next month, and then it's due in October in terms of has to
Okay,
be
so
submitted
if we were
by.
to postpone this until, say, middle of May, would that be?
We've survived without.
Okay.
So to
Well, I'm
say-
just thinking in terms of some of the comments that, you know, a lot of changes are going to be made possibly, and if that's the case, then, you know, it might not be too prudent to do it right now.
and that would be, you know, your decision.
I have something to offer.
Commissioner Boyce?
I guess I'm a little surprised because, you know, Oregon State Parks, to the extent it has been managed so incredibly well over the years, not perfectly, but it's one of the greatest bright spots we have for the state of Oregon. When you look at the county level, the success we've had in the last 3 years in particular, and the amount of revenue that's been generated, we have a graph somewhere in our stuff here, but it goes from 30,000 to 90,000. This basically has nothing to do with the budget process. If there were some surprises, then I hope we would have a very qualified parks board to help deal with any of this. Fay Stewart is a commissioner in Lane County, a good friend. His father and uncle one time employed over 1,000 people in the Eugene, Lane County area through Bohemia Lumber Company. And to the extent that they dedicated their lives to Oregon State Parks as successful businessmen, lumbermen, and employers, it's just incredibly noteworthy. And I've talked to some different people in Curry County that have a sincere enthusiasm and interest for serving on this board, and I, for the life of me, can't imagine why we would delay getting those people involved. 101, citizen involvement, and I'm going to ask the board to consider doing this. There is an urgency here with everything we have to do, in addition to the budget, in addition to the Port of Brookings having no emergency facility. The list goes on and on and on. And we're spending 15 minutes on whether we want to have a parks board or not. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm really surprised at that. And the last thing I'll say is, Director Trost, your motivation to come up with this idea shows where your spirit is and what your long-term outlook is for this county, and it goes with what you've accomplished. No, you've made some mistakes, we all do, but overall, I hope we can support you. And I know there's some people in this community, these communities, that will anxious to get on board. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So do we have a motion to approve this item for the formation of this Parks Advisory Committee?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Do we have a second? Motion dies for lack of a second.
Do we have a motion to postpone the formation of this
Do
committee?
we want to have a motion to, do we? want to make a
I'll
motion
move to postpone the formation of this committee. I think it's important, but I think we need to,
For consideration at a future time?
yes.
Okay. Do we have a second for that? Certainly that motion dies for lack of a second.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to move to agenda item 7A is the appointment, is under administrative actions, it's appointment of the South County representative to the Budget Committee. Now, this is not the committee that's been meeting, this citizen or Budget Advisory Committee. This is a different committee. This is the one of 3 individuals that are the lay members of the County Budget Committee. And that's item, again, 7A.
Mr. Chair, we have, if I may,
Commissioner Boyce?
we have 3 excellent qualified applicants, and it is a toss-up for me. I'm going to move that we appoint for another term Terry Hanscom, due to his background experience, former commissioner, and I would like to see us, too long a motion, I'm sorry. I'd like to see us take advantage of his willingness to serve an additional term.
Okay, if we had, yeah, I think the way it was shown on this order was basically choose between the 3 that were listed. So your motion is for
Terry Hanscom.
Terry Hanscom. Do we have a second for that motion?
I'll withdraw my motion, Mr. Chair, and I'll make an additional motion to appoint Tom Brandt, who has also served in the past, very qualified.
Okay. Do we
I'll
have a
second that.
Okay. Any further discussion on that motion? Call for the question?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And I see my glasses. Yes. Tom's sitting in the back seat there, I see him. Okay, now we have nothing under agenda item 9, proclamations, resolutions, legislative actions. Under agenda item 10, we have 2 items, both from Commissioner Boyce. Item 10A is titled Commissioner Appointments for County Council Time. BOC, 15 minutes, but I believe that was Commissioner Boyce that has put this on the agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I don't think we need 15 minutes. First of all, I want to clarify that I did not talk to Council Huddle about this until the very last minute, and then told him of my intentions. I don't want to give any appearance that he in any way lobbied me, or this is my idea and my concern. If I may, his time is a bit compromised with his administrative duties within the Board of Commissioners office, and he is carrying quite a load, and I think it is very appropriate that each of the commissioners set up appointment times with a 30-minute limit, and then have the results of that meeting, or those meetings, to be shared privately with the other commissioners. I think transparency is very, very important. I know there is a client-attorney privilege, but he represents the people of this county, number one, and then he represents the board collectively, number two. So drop-ins I don't think are in the interest of this county and our efforts to solve the serious problems we have here. So I am asking the board to consider a new policy toward that end.
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Gold?
My concern is that what outcomes would this be, or how would this be beneficial to the citizens of Curry County?
Whatever I discuss with him through an appointed time, I think would be very beneficial to you to know. And I think I have a responsibility and obligation to let you know that. We were hired to be transparent in everything we do, and that's we can't, without that trust, we're not going to get the problem solved.
Well, I'm thinking of some specific instances. For instance, if you were talking to him about an employee, I don't think that should be shared with the other commissioners. I think there should be some council privilege. Council, what are your feelings on this issue?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the sentiment. I think the intentions of the commissioner are fantastic, but to me, just the practical reality, and it kind of is it's a philosophical topic. For instance, in the last budget cycle, I presented to the board 3 different options for providing services, legal services, that every county has. They can have a appointed county council. I think one county even has an elected county council by their county charter. They can use the district attorney for county legal services, or they can hire an outside legal firm. My experience has been what typically is called in-house counsel, meaning you're appointed by the board and you're housed in the office, you're a county employee. That's my past practice at my former employer as the city. And I think one of the best benefits of that is I think there's efficiencies of having a lawyer at your disposal. I will say this, Commissioner Huxley is very good at making appointments. Commissioner Boyce is very good at making appointments. Commissioner Gold, you use the drop-in method, and more than.
And you know what? I'm an adult. If you guys want appointments, I don't think we need a policy. I'll just do it.
No, so, but regardless, and then the other issue is the sharing of the information that I talked to each of you about. I think the general sense that I've had when I talk to you, I try to maintain the confidences and allow you, because usually when you come talk to me, you're working on an idea, and it's then for you to bring to the board when quote unquote you're ready. And I would like to, and there are rare instances where I will tell you, hey, I feel I need to bring this to the board, and we'll make a discussion there. But I think it's also, to the advantage. I agree you work collectively, but each of you are, you have different departments you liaise to, you have different areas that you're working on. And so I think to be able to get my advice confidentially and then share them with the board when you're ready, but not to have me be required to share them with the board. It is the board's choice. They could require me to do meetings or do, reports. I'd recommend they be done in executive session, but a lot of times, the board members just have questions about, and I'll just use the example, Mr. Chair, today you had questions about the insurance provisions on that grant or something like that. I mean, if that would come to me in a meeting, perhaps that wouldn't even need to be discussed to the board if it met your satisfaction and no other board members had a question. So there's just so many different ways that I provide legal services to the boards. And then my other tongue-in-cheek comment was that Commissioner Boyce's idea didn't go far enough, and I'd like all the departments and all the other elected officials to make appointments to see me too. But that is also very tongue-in-cheek. I just don't know if it's practical to have, because I don't know it goes far enough, because I also give advice to other departments, and then there's phone calls, emails, you know, so there's just so many ways I provide service, and I think just having myself be accessible as much as I can. And am I busy? Yes, I am. I enjoy being busy. Have I had to more or less do triage where some things get put on the far back burner? Yes, I have, but at the same time, I'm trying to provide service not just to the 3 county commissioners, but also to, you know, for instance, the assessor, or the development director, or the county accountant. So and to have each of them also make appointments, I think my support staff would be spending most of their time doing appointments versus doing follow-up tasks. So I think it's a great idea. I just don't know how it works as it rolls out. I appreciate knowing ahead of time when you want to come and talk to me. It helps me plan. But I think each of you has the ability to do appointments. I'm not going to request that I require you to make appointments. I just think there's going to be times where making an appointment is just not practical. So that's it. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm repeating myself, and I appreciate the chance to speak on it. But I very much appreciate the idea and the sentiment of the motion. I think it's made in great spirit and great idea. But the practicality of it. I think I would become like an appointment-making machine, and would I be able to do everything else? I don't know.
I appreciate everything you just explained. I just don't see an appointment system as that complicated. I can't imagine any attorney under any capacity surviving without a strict appointment system. And of course, I want equal time. I'm one of the new commissioners here, and I've got a lot to learn. And
equal time.
Yeah.
Point of order.
But I want to respect your time. And in Commissioner Gold's example of an employee issue, I absolutely would want to know about that. And I can't imagine not. Why would it not be a board? It's like this meeting was set for April 5th. I didn't know that. The next general meeting. I'm not catching up here fast enough, and I don't know.
I think that would have to be done in executive session.
Well, if that's where we're headed, that is the proper way to go. And maybe that will be a positive result even from this request.
It would take board direction. And again, Commissioner Boyce, how about you and I talk more about the concept? I don't disagree with it. Private practice attorneys, you make an appointment. Sometimes they allow walk-ins. Technically it's not uncommon for private practice to have walk-ins as well. Again, but I agree with the idea, and I would like to talk to you more about how it works. And then also, again, I said it's tongue-in-cheek, but I think the same idea would work with all the departments, both elected and appointed, that I also serve. And how do you answer the email question? Because what if someone wants to not have an appointment and just send an email for the same question? And, am I going to respond to an email and say, hey, make an appointment? I feel like I'm taking up too much of everyone's time on this. I think you and I should talk about this offline.
And I appreciate that. And I'm going to be watching close. And if nothing else, maybe something good will come out. Maybe it already has, that there's an awareness that you're an expensive employee and your time is very valuable. And I'm just going to politely represent that we all need to be reminded of that.
And you did say something, you want equal time. If you feel I'm not giving you equal time, you come and talk to me about it, because I like to think that I'm available to all of you on an equal basis when you need me. So let me know if you need me.
I have no complaints there. I just think my number one responsibility is to have everything out in the open.
Okay.
As it should be.
That I need
not
to
everything.
also,
Excuse me.
That's the hardest part of my job, right?
I think you understand.
Right. Lawyers need to
Any further
maintain
comments,
competencies.
Commissioner Gold?
Well, my only comment is if you feel we need an appointment, we can do that. We're adults. So it's up to you.
The only time you're going to need an appointment is if, you try to see me and I'm already busy doing something else where I have a previous engagement or, a prior appointment. That's about the only time I'll have a conflict. So that's when I would just say, I'm busy right now, make an appointment type.
Well, and again, we're adults. If we can see that you're busy,
Yep.
maybe we shouldn't hang out.
I have just one comment on this, and I'm going to go back to the, and I'm shocked that it hasn't been addressed. You've mentioned, Commissioner Boyce, that the conversations, if we, were to discuss something with the county council, and that those conversations then would be shared with the other individually 2 commissioners. And that's a massive, in my opinion, breach of the public meeting laws, and we can even go further with the Handy case.
Well,
to me,
thank you,
that's
Mr. Chair.
massive.
Well, that's where, when I was talking about Commissioner Boyce and I would work on the details, I would see any sharing of information be done in some kind of an executive session where all the board members work together at the
it
same
can
time.
be, but it's,
Right.
the courts have pretty much said, you're then you're acting as the interface, and you're sharing
No, I would.
the
right, it would
conversation with
only-
Commissioner Boyce with me, then with Commissioner Gold, and then vice versa.
Before decisions have been made in
And out of the
public.
public view, out of the.
It's
Oh,
true.
it would be done,
executive session.
in executive
Yeah.
session, which is a lawful purpose.
But
and that
then
would
you
follow
have
all
to
the
have
public
reason for the
meeting.
executive, there are very specific
agree.
requirements, and it's not just to discuss, you can't just hold an executive session
Well, you
for
can-
a lot
not?
of reasons, but.
Attorney-client privilege
Yeah,
information is
but
usually
to
allowed.
discuss any
Sure.
any subject, it just to me is could
No,
be
I-
looked at as
Yeah.
abuse of the public meeting law.
Well, the more times we spend together, the better it is for the people.
Okay.
Simple as that.
All right.
Not
Well-
not sharing the information that way.
Yeah,
No,
but-
the information will be shared
Uh-huh.
collectively, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
pursuant to the public meetings laws.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I didn't understand Commissioner Boyce to say anything otherwise in his proposal. So,
Okay, so are we good to go to 10B then, formation of a consumption tax advisory committee?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Boyce?
People of this county, they look at Washington, they look at the state of Oregon, and they see waste everywhere they go. And we sometimes get county government, especially the last 10 years or so, kind of gets blended into that perception. And not to pick on the poor state of Oregon, but there's some people in control up there that are they're out of control in their spending, and it's not a good picture for Curry County, any part of Oregon. Curry County doesn't have a revenue problem or a spending problem; it has a revenue problem. I appreciate being able to come before the board. I have a stack of paperwork that is about 8 or 10 inches high, previous commission boards and committees that have worked on sales tax, consumption tax, transient lodging tax, and some almost exceptional information. I haven't read through it all, obviously, and I'm not in favor of any new taxes without proper review. We have a sheriff's department that is in a lot of trouble, and we need some revenue sources. And I, for one, not interested in going before the Curry citizenry and asking for a property tax levy again. And I think the resistance will be even stronger. But the reason I want to research the consumption tax with certain exemptions, subject to the research that's already been done through boards the last 6 or 8 years, that I think it has some merit to at least look at, and that is our job, in my view. Until the timber comes back, and I believe it will, we can show the public that we're willing to absolutely take a political risk and put something out there that if it is viable and has value and merit, if this committee that I'm proposing recommends that, then I think it might possibly be an answer. So again, I'm not for sales tax right now or consumption tax, but I am for proper research, and the county needs your help on that.
So you, to this item, you know, in your comments, what are you proposing at this time then for you to
Board
pursue that?
develop an advisory committee for looking into a consumption tax. We can provide them with lots of information to speed up the process and try and get them to report back to us early summer. Very similar to the Citizens Advisory Budget Committee.
So are you going to come back with a summary or something
That would be up to them.
to what you would propose then, or just from the verbal description, you want us to approve something?
I think we can get our heads together and give them some good direction and some consensus, and I think they'll get on board. And there's some people that are willing to participate because they know the county needs revenue very bad.
Commissioner Gold?
Let me just say, when I saw this agenda item, I started talking to people. I talked to everybody from very, very conservative to very, very liberal. And one of the things that came out of it was, you know, we've had all these citizens committees in the past, and they've basically been ignored. For instance, the Citizens Committee, I guess it was 2012, said we need to get a county administrator. That was their number one thing. And so this individual said, you know, I was part of that committee, and I wouldn't be part of another citizens committee simply because we're ignored. And so we're working right now on one of those recommendations. I would like to look at the recommendations from some of the other committees that have been formed and see if they have merit. But so far, I'm thinking that citizens are distrustful of doing this over and over again with nothing happening. So I think we need to complete what we've started on this one committee and then maybe look at this in another area. And just to let you know, there was one individual that would be in favor of a consumption tax, but only on things like prepared food, where that's not a necessity for everybody. More talking in restaurants and so forth. So people are not totally opposed to it, but I think if we were to approach the citizenry with another tax proposal at this point in time, it'd go down. That's just my opinion. And from what I...
Yeah, but we have to try.
Well, you can keep...
We have to try.
No, I'm not saying we can't try, but...
So you mentioned ignore, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, we've spent well over $100,000 on some of these committees, and
So we can break the
what
we
end?
can break the chain and be the leadership of the board that if this comes back as a wise proposal, then we could support it. And if we don't, we could lose our jail. Everything comes off the hub of that jail for our whole society, and that's why I'm going to promote everything I can.
well,
to
that's
start
definitely
there.
mandated as the jail.
Okay, but then it goes off in 20 different directions from that. And so I'm not saying this is a good idea. I don't know what a committee might come up with. One example you just offered, maybe it would be a $2,000 maximum purchase so we don't hurt our car dealerships in Brookings. Everybody pays something over here. Or the property tax people get hit with a bill every time, and they're basically saying, as you just referenced, no more. And I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
In my view, well, for whatever that's worth, it would not pass. This might, and there's tremendous amounts of tourism money out there that, if done in the right capacity, small percentage might work. I've got a lot of friends in the tourism business that'll probably run me out of town, but when the tourism come to this town and the response times for the sheriff's deputies gets longer and longer,
I don't think most tourists are looking at
they don't even
sales
notice
tax as
it.
an impediment to coming. I really
And
don't.
we don't even know how much could be raised. And we don't know what the administrative costs would be. I mean, it's not an uncomplicated thing, but there's already been substantial work done. I'm asking the board
Is
to
this
consider.
by other committees that it's been done?
Other boards and other commissioners that they may have lost their nerve to actually support it, and I understand, but I'm not here for political reasons. I'm here so that I can live the rest of my life here in a secure environment, and I think that's why people put me here, to make the tough choices.
We have basically 2 sentences here in the background note.
Yeah, I know, I misspelled
It's-
Commissioner, and I...
Oh, no, I didn't even, I wasn't looking at, but thank you.
I didn't edit
But
it very well.
I didn't
have
even,
time.
do that, but
Oh,
what I'm
my
saying,
goodness.
I would, if you're interested in, and I speak for myself only, coming back for approval to do something, bring me back a report, 1 or 2 pages summary why you think that we should do this, not just 2 sentences. That's my comment.
Fair enough. That sounds like
But
I'm
be
supporting a sales
succinct,
tax until I get
you
the
know.
qualified people that are willing to
Well,
sit
but
down.
at
and-
least what's your, more detail on what your perception, what your vision is, what
All right,
your plan
I'll
is.
take that
Not
challenge.
just a couple
How
of
many on the
sentences.
committee? When would you meet?
Well,
That kind of thing.
because, yeah. we
Don't
could
make
go
me
off
read that
on the-
10 inches of material.
On the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, I tried, because of a couple things I'd heard, and, get a phone call, I just tried to get some minutes from that, to find out, so I could learn a little bit. I couldn't even get minutes, and I contacted one of the fellows that's a member of the committee. He can't get the minutes either.
Do you realize, though, how many times they've met and the amount of time that they've contributed? And you're concerned that they don't have minutes? I mean, they're stretched pretty
Yes, I'm
thin.
concerned for the public, anybody who's not in the meetings, to learn what's
Yeah, but
going on in that budget committee.
let's don't
Yeah,
point a
yeah,
finger
I'm
at them
concerned.
publicly.
Yeah.
Let's go knock on their door and say,
Anyway.
could we possibly ask for some minutes to be?
Okay.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Okay.
that's how you
So,
get things done, in my
Are-
opinion.
Are we ready to go, are we okay to go to the next item then?
Yes, do we have a consensus here on what your request, I think I understood.
Well, no,
your-
I'm just saying, I would ask for a 1 or 2 page report, summary report from you to put down what it is you're really, in more detail, what it is you want to propose here.
And as I stated, I think that's fair enough, and I will offer that as quickly as I can get it done.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go to, agenda item 12, we had moved up. So agenda item 13, on commissioner updates, liaison department activity reports, we have 2 activity reports. We have one on, this is on 13A, is an activity report from the Community Development Department. It's the monthly report, I think, and the other one is from the assessor. That's activity report. Agenda item 13B, I wish more departments would do this on it. They're great reports.
I agree with you on that.
They summarize what the activity's been, from the number of permits to the number of documents they were able to scan in to make it easier for people to have access online in the surveyor's situation. He's even went so far as, he's got some great compliments recently, written compliments from people outside the area raving about how great it was to be able to go onto the surveyor's website, not have to come in, and the public information was there for them at no charge. And they were so pleased that they took the time to compliment him. So I think that was great.
So they're not going to speak now. We have
I think we just usually,
Very good.
and if there were a question, but typically we just read it, before the meeting. And I'm just commenting on what I think have been typically great reports, informative for us to.
And I
and
appreciate
the
those
public
reports
to read.
too. We do something similar at the school board where each school does a report. It's kind of like department heads would be, and it's very informative and helps you keep up on what's going on.
I thought Mr. Smith might be here today, and I was going to ask him. He had contacted the sheriff's department to see if they had an inventory of all the marijuana growers, and wanted to ask him if he sometimes gets a little bit nervous when he's out in the field working. And so I just have a little concern for that, but I'd be interested in
Well,
that
he
inventory.
does, because
So it's
by
a big job.
statute with, you know, as he explained it, he didn't cite the statute, but the surveyor has the legal right with certain conditions to legally trespass.
And you wonder if a
someone's
pit bull's going
property
to come
in order
out
to perform his
nowhere.
job. you know,
Yeah.
so
Of course, with
So-
marijuana being legalized, it might be a little easier, I would think. I don't know.
I hope you're
So
right.
do we have any let me see, let me go to this time it's Commissioner Gold goes first. If you have any commissioner comments.
I
Commissioner
have a
Gold.
couple of reports. I sat in on a hazardous waste meeting via telephone. And there is a new facility that's opening up in Beaver Hill. And they will be scheduling an event in Curry County for citizens to bring their household hazardous waste for the free disposal, which was good. And also, I need to report that in my informal interviews with various citizens, they are still very interested in getting a county manager. So, just to let you know what's going on.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. I'm
Okay.
short, sweet, and to the point.
Okay. Commissioner Boyce.
On ORIC, we are all on consensus, and they're okay to take control of their office, and I'm just double checking on that. The small
they
one.
have
They already have the
One
one
lease.
small office that they are
and they've
leasing,
been,
and they want to get the other one, and I wrote
That's going
her-
to take some time.
Yeah, I
Okay.
wrote,
Yeah.
I wrote her an email and just said, we
and
need
they
to
were
wait and see
requested
what our department needs
to
are.
provide the insurance, the contractually required insurance, and I think that's where that is.
Council Huddle, you're satisfied on the insurance requirement that seems to be moving fairly quickly.
I'm satisfied that they're working on it. And in my experience, they should be able to come up with it in relatively short order. Certificates of insurance by organizations to prove that they have insurance is pretty standard fare. Yeah. So, and what I've heard is that the administrative director for ORIC is having some issues in a personal capacity, which may be slowing down, her performance in this specific task. So, usually the practice is, as the landlord, you give them, a particular amount of time to cure the breach, and then, you move from there. So, they might be within that time. I see the development director, community development director, Carolyn Johnson's here. I don't know if she wants to speak to the most very latest up-to-the-minute information on the insurance request or provision, but that's up to the board. But I think if we give it a little more time, we'll get that insurance from them.
I don't think it's just the insurance. They were interested in getting a little larger space so that they wanted 2 spaces, but that's what I emailed her today about. We're not making that decision right now. But Carolyn, maybe you want to.
I'm glad to see that somebody's following this and is on top of it.
Yeah, well, I did
That's
tell
a
this
compliment
individual
to
that
Carolyn,
we
yeah.
had a standard rate for everybody, and
Okay. I don't really have
Wanna
any more
identify
comments.
yourself?
My name is Carolyn Johnson. I'm your Community Development Director. I don't really have any more comments or I think you've explained it fairly well. By your comments to County Council Huddle, it's my understanding that you, as the board, are okay with the staff taking a little leeway with what's in the context of each lease. The lease is very specific as to within 10 days after you've signed the lease, you will get the insurance into us. And if you don't, then we will notify you, and within 5 days of us notifying you, you will be in default of the lease if you don't cough up your insurance. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like you're willing to allow us as staff to work with people past those timeframes if needed. Is that what I'm
and when we're
hearing?
talking about insurance, we're talking about the existing leased space that they've got right now. Is
Yeah,
that
I'm
correct?
not talking about ORIC anymore. I'm talking about in
Oh, in
general
general.
as a
Okay.
big picture policy.
Yes.
If you are comfortable with that, then it's
To
really important that I
administer,
know that,
yeah,
because
to-
if I'm to administer a contract, which is what a lease agreement is, and it says you will respond within 5 days with your insurance, and people don't, I mean, I'm obliged to tell them they're in default of the lease, and that upsets people. But if the board is okay with me giving people more time,
Well,
that's
your
fine.
discretion, but
At my
I think
discretion,
what's finally happening is somebody's following through on these
So
contractual
then I have another
obligations.
question. What's the consequence if they don't follow through within the time limit?
Well,
Then the county's protected
well,
by declaring default.
if the county would be protected by declaring it in default, and then you would ask them to move out. But my point is, what I'm
Or
hearing.
could you renegotiate the lease? I know this lease is at a smaller rate than what we just approved. So could you renegotiate the lease so it is at the existing rate? Just
Wait,
checking.
Well,
Well,
but
that's a deal's a deal, guys. I mean, we,
Well, if
Yeah,
you break
so
the deal,
if
well,
if I could,
they break the
Mr.
deal,
Chair.
that's different.
If I
Yeah.
could, Mr.
That's
Chair.
different, but,
If I could.
Yeah,
Excuse
County
me.
Council?
Sure. So, the leases have, standard terms, tenant defaults, and it says that, it says, in the event tenant shall breach or fail to keep or perform any agreement or condition of this lease, and if such default or violation shall continue or shall not be remedied within 5 days, after notice in writing thereof is given, specifying the matter claimed to be in default, the landlord may, at its option, and this is what Community Development Director Johnson's talking about, the leeway. The landlord may, at its option, immediately terminate and declare the rights in default. That's why maybe she's here today to say.
it is,
yeah.
yes. And I'm here before you because if the board, if I'm not hearing a consensus, I need to get a consensus from you that word may gives me up to, if I decide they need another 2 months to get their insurance in because maybe their property's vacant and for another 2 months, then I have that discretion. I just need that comfort level because in my experience, an agreement is an agreement. And if you violate the agreement or you don't follow through on the terms, then there's consequences. So that's why I'm asking. It's sounding like you're comfortable in giving me some
I am,
discretion.
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, well, thank
Mr.
you.
Gold, is that-
I say use your good judgment.
Okay,
I
thank
think we
you.
have unanimous consensus.
Okay,
I'm going to
So
give you
Sorry, go ahead.
And
me,
the
go
only
ahead.
reason I say that is because we have an overabundance of spaces to lease. And
Yes.
so they're kind of in the driver's seat, let's face facts.
okay. I just don't want to take liberties with direction you've provided. When one of you signs on a dotted line, I want to follow that direction.
County Council?
So while we're here talking about this, the lease says that there should be a written notice describing in particularity the breach, and there's a 5-day time to cure the breach. And then if not, we may take the next step. So I think if the board's going to give direction to the person who's administering the lease, in this case, a community development director, it makes the most sense to follow the terms of the written notice and the 5 days. And then I think the process would be at the end of 5 days, you would give a report to the board, say, per the lease, we gave them their 5-day notice, they didn't cure it. Now is where, should we re-enter, kick them out, in other words, and terminate the lease. That's the real option, and that's where that is a little bit of a policy decision that has some factors to it. So-
Well, if that is the case, then I'm here to tell you that both of these office leases they received their written notice, the 5 days has passed, and we don't have their insurance. In one case, one of the parties they're on their way of getting it. In the other case, they're working on getting it, but they won't be occupying until July. So those are the two situations. And I've already notified them that with the 5-day notice that they would be in default if they didn't comply with these sections of the
Ooh,
agreement.
I have a question there. So one of the leases is to begin in July? Is that what you just said?
They won't
be
occupy until July.
They won't occupy it till July, but the lease began back in December.
Okay.
So
Are they paying?
technically, they've paid.
Okay.
But they aren't even in the building, they won't be in the building until July, even though they're technically the tenants.
Sure.
So, I mean, in my judgment, I think we could afford them some additional time to get the insurance, because there's no one in there.
I think we need to use some common sense.
Thank you.
Well, I would like to give, a little more discretion and authority to the community director,
Right.
so that we don't have to have you come back on every little
Right.
thing that's like this, within
Accept.
discretion.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, except if somebody's going to be evicted, I want to be in on that decision.
Well,
I
but
hope the board does.
I think we've
Okay.
we've
just
gone past
clarifying.
that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ori, can you tell me the rate they did agree to and paid?
I think it was
Month back or whatever.
39.
39 cents a square foot per month.
Are you going to be able to give them a discount on the other side if they want to move over there? Maybe not that good a rate.
I
but-
wouldn't make that decision. I would ask the board to make
Oh,
that
but the
decision,
rate-
because you've set up a rate,
A much higher rate
you've
than
set up
that.
a rate almost
Yeah,
double
yeah,
that for
much higher
nonprofits.
After the evaluation by,
So I would be asking you.
I think that's fair enough. Okay. I'm going to be, as a board, I want to be the best landlords
Sure.
in this end of the state.
Absolutely.
And as you said, Commissioner Gold, we have a lot of property that every little bit helps. And if it promotes business, nonprofit or otherwise, I have a sense here we're all on the same page. And
Yes.
I just want to have confidence in that, okay?
Thank you.
okay,
Thank
so we
you.
do have,
Do you need
Yeah.
anything further?
No, I don't. I think it's very clear.
Okay.
I would suggest that in your future leases, that you include a little, maybe beef up the language a little bit, because if there are some parameters that you want, for instance, if there's an eviction and you want to be notified,
I
I would
agree.
like that to be in the agreement. So,
maybe we could, not on a high priority, but,
I mean, down the road,
ask,
when the next
county
lease.
council to put that on a to-do list. I would like to
Okay.
add that.
I don't want to be notified. I want to be
No, I'm
in
just
on the
saying, yeah,
decision.
but not on
I
a
think
high
we're
priority, but to have
course.
on a to-do list.
That
for-
would be
for
easy to
director.
add that to the lease, I
Correct.
would think.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director Johnson.
Okay, did you have anything else, Commissioner Boyce?
I do.
Okay.
You ready? O&C. I have this optimism, and you see it around the state, you see it around the western United States. Give me the liberty of reading this letter from AOCC, Association of Oregon Counties, to Secretary Ryan Zinke, finally confirmed as the new Interior Secretary from Montana, former Navy SEAL, former Oregon Duck football player. Here's a letter that was written just a couple days ago to him from the AOC board. It's RE BLM Resource Management Plans for Western Oregon and ONC Lands. Dear Secretary Zinke, this association, AOCC, represents counties in Western Oregon within which lie the ONC lands, 2.1 million acres managed by the BLM that are legally unique and highly productive timberlands. These lands are managed under the ONC Act of 1937, etc., and the revenue produced from the sale of the timber is shared with the 18 ONC counties pursuant to 43, etc. The BLM's management of the ONC lands is currently being litigated in several cases, one of which was filed by AOCC. I can give you an update on that later, next meeting even if you like. The BLM's 2016 resource management plans violate ONC Act requirements to manage according to principles of sustained yield, keep that term, and to harvest an average of not less than 500 million board feet per year. Again, in those 18 counties, 4 times that, 2.1 million acres in inventory. The BLM's 2016 RMPs do neither. We have been asked if AOCC supports withdrawal of the BLM's 2016 resource management plan as a way to resolve the litigation and restore proper management. The answer is a definite and resounding no. Until a replacement RMP resource management plan, and the AOCC is, and so is Oregon Association of Counties also in on that, developing that management plan. If the 2006, no, until a replacement that complies with the ONC Act is ready to implement in place of the deficient 2016 RMP. If that RMP is withdrawn, management will likely default to the plan in place before the adoption. As bad as the 216 RMPs are, its predecessor, the Northwest Forest Plan, that was under President Obama, and that was worse. The 2016 placed about 80% of ONC lands into reserves. I'm going to skip the rest of this paragraph. It refers to President Clinton, was slightly less painful. Several faulty legal assumptions inherent in the NWFP were carried over, and in effect, the 2016 RMPs, the litigation currently pending should result in correction of the faulty legal interpretation that have prevented proper management of the ONC lands for the last 20 years. Two more quick paragraphs. I appreciate your indulgence. In the 2016, if the RMPs are withdrawn, AOCC's current case could be dismissed as moot, and we might then be prevented from filing a new case challenging the same faulty assumptions in the Northwest Forest Plan. Due to the passage of time since the NWFP was first adopted, and for other procedural reasons, loss of our opportunity to obtain a judicial ruling setting forth the correct interpretation of the ONC Act would be an exceedingly unfortunate development. In truth, concluding here, a legislative solution would be the most efficient way to solve the issues that plague us. But in the absence of congressional action, a judicial decision is our challenge to the 16 RMPs is necessary. Immediate withdrawal of that plan would not improve the situation for the counties and rural communities affected by ongoing management of the ONC lands. It would make the situation worse. Tim Freeman, Douglas County Commissioner and acting AOCC President. The only thing I would add to that quickly is there's been a House bill and a Senate bill. The House bill to revert back to the 500 million board feet did pass. It wasn't directly for that outcome, but they're gaining on that. The Senate won 51 to 48, but our two senators voted against it, Wyden and Merkley, and that really hurts. Really hurts. And I'm going to see Merkley this coming Sunday, I think it is, here in Gold Beach, and so I'll have an opportunity to ask him about that and really ask for his support on behalf of all the counties. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I'm looking. Okay, we are going to go into executive session. We're still in regular session at this point. What I would suggest is we take like a 5-minute break. And then we'll come back. It'll still be in regular session. Then we'll immediately go into executive session and ask everyone but the press and I think there'd be one attorney here to leave. But if we can at least take a little 5-minute break here, a little short recess.
Okay.
So let's say we come back. It's 12:27. Let's say we come back at 12:35.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Don't forget your microphone.
Well done, Councilman. Well done.
There's two.
I know there are 2 items.
2 items on it?
No, there's 2 different statutes cited, so I'm assuming.
It's the glow off my head.
Recess.
Think that one will work?
Thank you so much. Thank you. I just want you to know that the kids at Curry County High School are
Okay.
And I told Phil just he can work that out with you guys. Because if we had to, if we already had to use a flash drive or something, we could just put it in here just the way we did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, as long as it has an HDMI port, this one is lacking.
Well, no, this has got a VGA. That's lacking what?
HDMI
It
port.
was
When I was
supposed
using the VGA,
it was supposed to come with an HDMI.
yeah,
Positively.
right. Well,
Oh.
Both on a county level and a school level. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I want to do it.
We've only got 5 minutes.
No. It was from the initial order. It was explicit, must have HDMI, not VGA. That's a faux pas. I'll get a hold of, maybe if you just have, you talk to Charles or Nick.
They both know that.
Okay, would the brand new one, would you ask them if they would just email Dan Springer and say, hey, Tom asked us to just email you direct, this thing came in with no HDMI port. Let him, so I don't get in the middle. No, it was explicit from the initial approval of the purchasing.
Springer was the one who
HDMI, correct. HDMI, absolutely.
I'll bring it up to Charles.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me, Commissioner Huxley, do you think that there's any possibility that you will go back into regular session after executive session?
Well, we would only to say
you need to do anything until exec
Yeah.
session. So I think you just,
Am I still seeing that we're on the recess sign up there?
do you want me to go talk back?
Okay, now we're back on. Okay,
go
we're
back to
back on the
Medford.
record.
Do you have to go back to Medford?
We're back
tonight?
on the record. It's 12:39 p.m., March 15th, 2017. Continuing with the Board of Commissioners General Meeting, we're about to go into Agenda Item 14, which is executive session. And there's two sections here. I'll read both. A will be per the ORS 192-660, subsection 2, to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. Subsection H would be to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed. The second portion of this executive session will be per, again, ORS 192-660, subsection 2, subsection F, to discuss information exempt from public disclosure pursuant to ORS 192-501, subsection 22, ORS 192-502, subsection 1, subsection 8, and subsection 33, county security features and plans. We'll go into executive session. There's no one here from the press. We do have the Tracy McGovern representing the Curry County on some legal issues. So if we could go ahead, Simmer, could you close that door, please? And we're now in executive session.
So does our recorder, our tech know that
And
this is
make
not
sure that
broadcast?
Jesse turns, make sure he's off now on the audio, please.
What draws you to the Oregon coast? Is it the green and blue surf on a brilliant sunny day, or angry, boiling waves during a raging winter storm? Do you prefer quiet coves or powerful breakers churning the sand? How about sand castles? Do you come for the rising tide or the setting sun, to marvel at whales gliding through the sea or flying in the sky? Reasons to travel the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are as far-reaching as your imagination. This is a spectacular part of Oregon that traces the entire coastline along Highway 101, guiding you to the sea and away again, to coastal towns big and small, lowland marshes, and breathtaking overlooks. It's a long byway stretching from the mouth of the Columbia River to the California border, 363 miles in all, of some of the most unblemished, awe-inspiring seascapes you'll find anywhere. In addition to its designation as a scenic byway, Highway 101 in Oregon also has been selected as an all-American road. That means when you come here, you will experience one of only 31 roads considered to be the best of the best in America.
You know, when people come to the Oregon coast, they're really astonished how beautiful it is, and what separates it from many of the other places in North America that are coastal is how undeveloped it is. And that's because Oregon had a very far-sighted land use program back in the 1970s. We have all these wonderful state parks along the scenic byway that are perfect places to stop and enjoy nature in a relatively unspoiled way.
From the north, you begin in Astoria, the first permanent European settlement in the Pacific Northwest. It's a genuine maritime community with ship traffic from around the world seeking harbor up the Columbia. The official State Maritime Museum of Oregon sits here on the river. Beautiful Victorian houses dot the hillside. And standing 600 feet above sea level is the 125-foot Astoria Column. It features a hand-painted spiral frieze that would stretch over 500 feet if unwound. Heading south, you'll find the community of Seaside, a popular vacation spot that offers miles of public beaches, an oceanfront promenade, and a downtown core packed with restaurants, shops, and even a beach-type arcade. Cannon Beach is home to one of Oregon's most photographed natural wonders, Haystack Rock. Get your shots from the beach, or take a short drive up to Ecola State Park and look down on this 235-foot work of art. The picturesque small town is filled with art galleries, shops, and cafes. Ready for more? 10 miles to the south, this is the view from Cape Falcon. You're 700 feet above the Pacific. Here, the Pacific Coast Byway has been carved out of Neahkahnie Mountain and held in place by stone walls built in the 1930s by craftsmen in the Civilian Conservation Corps. Upon descending the mountain, the highway drifts inward around Tillamook Bay to Tillamook, the unofficial dairy capital of Oregon. The verdant valley of dairy farms in this area produces 25 million gallons of milk annually. Much of that is processed into natural cheddar cheese. And near more than 800 miles of navigable waters, Tillamook is a crossroads for North Coast recreation. From here, you owe it to yourself to veer off Highway 101 to explore the Three Capes Scenic Loop. This drive places you right at the beach, beginning with Cape Mears, home to the shortest lighthouse in Oregon. 9 lighthouses stand sentinel along Oregon's coastline. They're monuments to our maritime heritage, towering links to the past, and as much a part of the rugged Oregon coastal landscape as any offshore monolith. The Cape Mears Lighthouse was first illuminated in 1890. Oregon's oldest lighthouse is at Cape Blanco, the westernmost point in the state. It was commissioned in 1870 to aid shipping generated by gold mining and the lumber industry. The 93-foot-high Yaquina Head Lighthouse is the tallest in Oregon. Today, its automated light continues to aid navigation at the entrance to Yaquina Bay. Many of the lighthouses are open to the public. Most happen to be excellent places to view nesting seabirds and offshore sea life. Tide pools, those rocky areas between high and low tides, support unique and diverse plants and animals. Vast amounts of colorful, otherworldly creatures wait to be discovered. But walk cautiously. These organisms are tough enough to withstand the pounding surf, but are utterly vulnerable to human activity. Wildlife and sea life abound on the coast.
There are 6 national wildlife refuges along the Oregon coast. The Pacific Coast Scenic Byway bisects these refuges or goes alongside them. It provides you the opportunity to see a wide variety of abundant wildlife, including seabirds, seals and sea lions, deer and elk, and many other wildlife.
Cape Kiwanda lies at the southern end of the Three Capes Scenic Loop, near the town of Pacific City. Here you'll find a second haystack rock on the byway. Hike up the dune to marvel at stunning views of sandstone formations as they turn yellow, gold, or even red in the changing sunlight. If your timing is right, you'll spot 1 or 2 of the dory fleet sprint onto the beach after a day of fishing. How's this for a dinner setting? Restaurants along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway accommodate just about any taste. Many serve an ocean view with every meal. Up and down the coast, you'll find seafood, of course, but don't limit yourself just because you're by the water. The Central Coast begins around Lincoln City, which is one of the larger communities on the byway. It has a reputation for being windy and was recognized by Kite Lines magazine as the best place to fly a kite in North America. It was incorporated from several small towns, and as a result, offers a sandy beach that is 7.5 miles long. A number of small state parks lie nestled along the ocean between Lincoln City and Newport. Stop, get out of your car, and take in the commanding views that are there, right next to your all-American road. Depot Bay boasts the world's smallest navigable harbor, 6 square acres in all. A seawall runs the length of the downtown, so everywhere you go, you're rewarded with a dramatic view of the Pacific. It's considered Oregon's whale-watching capital, with thousands making their way past Oregon each fall and spring. Fishing and whale-watching excursions regularly set sail from this little harbor. Leaving Depot Bay, you'll soon find yourself at Cape Foulweather, a basalt outcropping that looms 500 feet above the water. It was here, in 1778, British Captain James Cook first sighted the mainland of North America on the Pacific coast. A fierce storm that almost put an end to his expedition earned this rugged stretch of coastline its name. Coastal weather can change by the hour. You will find a lot of wet days, but rain can become blue sky with white clouds in an afternoon. Mist kissing the headlands burns away, Or storms can last for days. Some people come for those storms. Whether you find sunbursts of happiness or cloud cover like a quilt, there's always a reason to come back. Like Lincoln City, Newport is one of the larger towns on the byway. The historic bayfront on the north side of Yaquina Bay hosts one of Oregon's largest commercial fishing fleets. It has a busy, genuine working waterfront feel, with fish plants and boats coming and going from as far away as Alaska. On the south side of the bay is the Oregon Coast Aquarium. Share waters beneath the ocean with sharks and rays. And don't miss the sea otters at mealtime.
Now, all 4 of our otters were rescued otters. They were found out in the wild.
For the next 50 miles, your trip along Highway 101 hugs the coast. Many more state parks offer opportunities to stop and take in outstanding vistas, crashing waves, and offshore rock formations. 2 small towns of note are Waldport and Yachats. Waldport sits on Alsea Bay, where fishing, clamming, and crabbing are popular. The 40-mile stretch south of Waldport marks steep headlands, jagged volcanic outcrops, and jaw-dropping scenery, the rugged edge of the Oregon coast. Yachats is a quiet, unhurried artist town just a couple of miles north of Cape Perpetua. Drive to the top of this bluff, and you'll be 800 feet above the water. On a clear day, you can see 70 miles of Oregon coastline. Drive past Heceta Head Lighthouse to the Sea Lion Caves. A quick elevator ride 200 feet down puts you in America's largest sea cave, the year-round home of wild stellar sea lions. Rugged cliffs give way to graceful beaches as you approach Florence. In the spring, be on the lookout for wild rhododendrons along the roadsides. Similar to Newport, you'll find an historic Old Town commercial district along the Siuslaw River. Florence is the gateway to the Oregon Dunes National Recreation Area, a 47-mile sandbox of wind-sculpted sand dunes towering 500 feet above sea level. These are the largest expanse of coastal sand dunes in North America. Reedsport is at the center of the Oregon Dunes, but you can do more than ride a dune buggy or motorcycle. A short 3 miles east of town on Highway 38, more than 100 Roosevelt elk reside at the Dean Creek Elk Viewing Area. Early mornings or just before dusk are the best times to photograph the herd. Paying homage to Oregon's timber heritage, Reedsport hosts an annual Chainsaw Sculpting Championship, a time to watch 3-dimensional artwork come to life right before your eyes. Mountains of sand continue at Winchester Bay. You'll also find an active marina here. It's a great place to try your hand at crabbing or take a charter for salmon or bottom fishing. The dunes end and you enter the coast's largest urban area at Coos Bay. It has the deepest natural harbor between Seattle and San Francisco. Foreign vessels sail under the massive McCullough Bridge. You may have noticed, dotted along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are many beautiful and iconic bridges. The Megler Bridge in Astoria, Yaquina Bay Bridge in Newport, Alsea Bay Bridge in Waldport, Siuslaw River Bridge in Florence, and the magnificent McCullough Bridge in Coos Bay are works of art in their own right. Charleston is slightly off the byway at the mouth of the bay. It was once an old waterfront fishing village and has become a commercial and sport fishing center. From here, the Charleston to Bandon tour route offers another side trip off the byway. It's a wonderful way to explore a variety of natural Pacific Coast beauty in a number of settings: beaches, vistas, gardens, and more. Giant sea stacks, a tiny lighthouse, and an old town await you in Bandon. Do you like to golf? This remote area on the Oregon coast has not one, but 3 of the most stunning and challenging golf courses in the world. As you drive south of town, look for brilliant red bogs in the fall. You're passing through the cranberry capital of Oregon. After a trek through forests and farmlands, you'll reach Port Orford. The wild coast has begun. You're in the most westerly city in the continental United States, and you've reached some of the most awesome scenery on the byway. Here you can watch a fishing fleet launched by crane in one of only 6 dolly ports in the world. Port Orford covers less than 2 square miles. It's similar to many communities that call this all-American road home. Small in size, still with a lot to offer. Like Manzanita, with a vibrant business district and beautiful setting at the base of Neahkahnie Mountain. You can board a fishing charter out of Garibaldi, swim in freshwater lakes near Dune City, catch world-class windsurfing at Pistol River. There is little development from Port Orford to Gold Beach, outlet for the renowned Rogue River. Feel like going for a ride? Jet boat excursions run from May into October up this wild and scenic river. Or maybe a midday walk on an uncrowded beach is more your speed. The last dozen miles of the Pacific Coast Byway leading into Brookings save some of the best for last. Treat yourself to frequent stops along the Samuel H. Boardman Scenic Corridor. Short hikes reward you with the best views in this shining stretch of coastline. Walk, relax, and be amazed along the coves and the crashing surf. The world's northernmost redwood grove is 8 miles from the mouth of the Chetco River in Brookings. So, you've toured nature's finest art museum. You've dined elegantly, hung out with sea lions, unwound like you wish you could every day. What else is there to do? Step back in history near Astoria. Ride a horse along the waves near Florence. Pet a baby tiger near Bandon. Hike a trail, sample gourmet cheese, eat fresh-caught crab, watch a sunset.
When you come to the Oregon coast and walk on the beaches or go to the headlands and go to the small coastal towns, you really can commune with nature, and you don't have huge numbers of people, but you're also able to take in one of America's last great unspoiled seascapes.
So what draws you to the Oregon coast? What favorite places lure you back again and again? Each visit is different. The ocean, the sky, the light, and the experience always continue to amaze. Shouldn't you be there?
America's 3,069 county governments provide fundamental services for building healthy, safe, and vibrant communities. We are an intergovernmental partner, implementing federal and state policies at the local level, often under strict rules and funding constraints. County governments, through the National Association of Counties, engage federal policymakers on a range of issues like transportation, infrastructure, healthcare, public safety, and public lands management. All of these issues are vital to our nation's quality of life and our long-term prosperity. Decisions made by the White House, Congress, and federal courts have a major cascading impact on our ability to lead our communities and pursue a better future. Let's look at why federal policies matter to county government and why county government matters to America. Counties provide vital services that keep our communities thriving and secure. We own and maintain 45% of roads and 4 out of 10 bridges. We own more than a third of the airports and hundreds of hospitals and thousands of courthouses, jails, 911 call centers, and libraries. We play a critical role during emergencies like hurricanes, floods, and snowstorms. What if you called 911 and no one answered? What if you couldn't reach your medical facility because roads and bridges were in disrepair or never built? County governments are an indispensable part of the infrastructure and services that keep residents safe and connected. But with very limited revenue options under most state constitutions and laws, counties must make every penny count in order to fulfill federal and state mandates and required responsibilities. Nothing is more basic in our society than essential public facilities like schools, hospitals, airports, jails, bridges, and other infrastructure. Yet proposals have surfaced to eliminate or scale back tax-exempt municipal bonds. For over a century, municipal bonds have been the lifeblood for our nation's public infrastructure. helping finance more than $3.7 trillion in essential projects. If tax-exempt municipal bonds were eliminated or scaled back, county governments and our residents would face billions in new costs when financing vital facilities. Additionally, counties rely on MAP 21 and the Federal Highway Trust Fund to complement local transportation financing resources. With growing demands and mounting costs, we need a reliable federal partner to invest with us in our nation's economic growth and competitiveness. We need a long-term legislative solution with increased funding to ensure continued success in operating our nation's transportation system. Counties face further revenue losses each year because billions of dollars in e-commerce sales tax revenue isn't collected. The Marketplace Fairness Act would enable states and localities to collect existing, already owed taxes. It would also level the playing field between many Internet retailers who don't collect sales taxes and Main Street businesses that do. County governments provide support services to federal public lands, touching 700 million annual visitors. We lead search and rescue operations, fight fires, protect the public's health, and maintain roads. Federal lands cover nearly 1/3 of the U.S. and impact 69% of counties. Because federal land is exempt from local property taxes, counties depend on PILT, the Payment in Lieu of Taxes program, to provide essential services. The Secure Rural Schools program provides assistance to rural counties and school districts affected by the decline in revenue from timber harvests on federal land. Decisions to cut or delay funding both programs undermine our ability to provide services and maintain public lands. Our intergovernmental partnerships don't end with legislation because counties also implement and comply with federal and state regulations. When considering environmental protections, we know our communities and care deeply about the environment. We need a stronger voice in shaping common-sense regulations that protect communities while also promoting economic growth. This is why NACO secured significant improvements to FEMA's flood insurance program and is pushing back on the waters of the U.S. proposed rule. Our message: federal policies matter to county government, and county government matters to America. Every level of government must work together to shape policies that improve the quality of life for all Americans. Whether it's building and maintaining infrastructure, providing essential services, or fostering economic growth, counties are on the front line serving their citizens. NACO stands ready to work with the administration and Congress to make our nation's communities healthier, safer, and more vibrant places to live and work.
There's something about having land and sea. Never having to choose between digging in or looking out. Here, you can go where the spirit or the wind moves you. To the tops of the trees, along secluded beaches, or into more wild and scenic rivers than anywhere else in the western United States. We're the closest place to the sunset while still keeping your feet dry, and a destination where anyone can begin. We share more than we keep, so you can see more than you imagined. This is a place you have to touch, hold, and feel to believe. The entire shoreline of the West Coast's best coast is open to you, and playgrounds made of forests are waiting for you. Escape to Curry County and don't leave anything out.
Counties matter. Counties serve nearly every American every day. Urban, suburban, and rural, counties work with states, the federal government, and other public and private partners to keep our communities healthy, vibrant, and safe. Whether you're commuting to work or shipping goods around the globe, counties matter. Counties own and maintain 45% of the nation's roads and 4 out of 10 bridges. And we're involved in nearly a third of public airports and transit systems. Counties matter when Americans need us the most. Counties matter because we support smart, fair, and effective criminal justice systems. We help fund police and sheriff's departments. We own and operate local jails, 911 call centers, and mental health facilities. Counties create healthy communities. We invest more than $80 billion in hospitals and medical services each year. Counties matter because we invest in the lives of residents of all ages, improving their quality of life where they live and work. Counties are the building blocks of state, regional, and national economies. We support housing, recreation, and economic development. And we do so much more. From issuing birth certificates to administering elections. Counties employ more than 3.5 million people. In total, we invest more than $500 billion in our residents and our communities every year. Counties provide essential services we all depend on every day. That's why counties matter.
Why do counties matter? Simple. Counties provide the services we all depend on. If you're concerned about crime, get a regular flu shot, drive to work, take public transportation, or experience a natural disaster in your community, chances are you benefit from county services. That's why counties matter. With America's system of federalism, counties are a key level of government, serving the people directly. So, do you vote? Had a recent hospital stay? Know someone in a nursing home? More reasons why counties matter. There are 3,069 counties across the country, with populations big and small. Most of us live and work in one. Even the nation's capital is considered a county. These county governments ensure that the food you eat in restaurants is safe. They care for the mentally ill, run court systems, build local economies, and operate 911 emergency systems. They manage parks and recreation facilities. And the list goes on. Thing is, counties serve the American people in so many ways, keeping our communities healthy, vibrant, safe, and fiscally sound. That's why counties matter.
What draws you to the Oregon coast? Is it the green and blue surf on a brilliant sunny day, or angry boiling waves during a raging winter storm? Do you prefer quiet coves or powerful breakers churning the sand? How about sand castles? Do you come for the rising tide or the setting sun, to marvel at whales gliding through the sea or flying in the sky? Reasons to travel the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway are as far-reaching as your imagination. This is a spectacular part of Oregon that traces the entire coastline along Highway 101 guiding you to the sea and away again, to coastal towns big and small, lowland marshes, and breathtaking overlooks. It's a long byway stretching from the mouth of the Columbia River to the California border, 363 miles in all of some of the most unblemished, awe-inspiring seascapes you'll find anywhere. In addition to its designation as a scenic byway, Highway 101 in Oregon also has been selected as an all-American road. That means when you come here, you will experience one of only 31 roads considered to be the best of the best in America.
You know, when people come to the Oregon coast, they're really astonished how beautiful it is, and what separates it from many of the other places in North America that are coastal is how undeveloped it is. And that's because Oregon had a very far-sighted land use program back in the 1970s. We have all these wonderful state parks along the scenic byway that are perfect places to stop and enjoy nature in a relatively unspoiled way.
From the north, you begin in Astoria, the first permanent European settlement in the Pacific Northwest. It's a genuine maritime community with ship traffic from around the world seeking harbor up the Columbia. The official State Maritime Museum of Oregon sits here on the river. Beautiful Victorian houses dot the hillside. And standing 600 feet above sea level is the 125-foot Astoria Column. It features a hand-painted spiral frieze that would stretch over 500 feet if unwound. Heading south, you'll find the community of Seaside, a popular vacation spot that offers miles of public beaches, an oceanfront promenade, and a downtown core packed with restaurants, shops, and even a beach-type arcade. Cannon Beach is home to one of Oregon's most photographed natural wonders, Haystack Rock. Get your shots from the beach, or take a short drive up to Ecola State Park and look down on this 235-foot work of art. The picturesque small town is filled with art galleries, shops, and cafes. Ready for more? 10 miles to the south, this is the view from Cape Falcon. You're 700 feet above the Pacific. Here, the Pacific Coast Byway has been carved out of Neahkahnie Mountain and held in place by stone walls built in the 1930s by craftsmen in the Civilian Conservation Corps. Upon descending the mountain, the highway drifts inward around Tillamook Bay to Tillamook, the unofficial dairy capital of Oregon. The verdant valley of dairy farms in this area produces 25 million gallons of milk annually. Much of that is processed into natural cheddar cheese. And near more than 800 miles of navigable waters, Tillamook is a crossroads for North Coast recreation. From here, you owe it to yourself to veer off Highway 101 to explore the Three Capes Scenic Loop. This drive places you right at the beach, beginning with Cape Mears, home to the shortest lighthouse in Oregon. 9 lighthouses stand sentinel along Oregon's coastline. They're monuments to our maritime heritage, towering links to the past, and as much a part of the rugged Oregon coastal landscape as any offshore monolith. The Cape Mears Lighthouse was first illuminated in 1890. Oregon's oldest lighthouse is at Cape Blanco, the westernmost point in the state. It was commissioned in 1870 to aid shipping generated by gold mining and the lumber industry. The 93-foot-high Yaquina Head Lighthouse is the tallest in Oregon. Today, its automated light continues to aid navigation at the entrance to Yaquina Bay. Many of the lighthouses are open to the public. Most happen to be excellent places to view nesting seabirds and offshore sea life. Tide pools, those rocky areas between high and low tides, support unique and diverse plants and animals. Vast amounts of colorful, otherworldly creatures wait to be discovered. But walk cautiously. These organisms are tough enough to withstand the pounding surf, but are utterly vulnerable to human activity. Wildlife and sea life abound on the coast.
There are 6 national wildlife refuges along the Oregon coast. The Pacific Coast Scenic Byway bisects these refuges or goes alongside them. It provides you the opportunity to see a wide variety of abundant wildlife, including seabirds, seals and sea lions, deer and elk, and many other wildlife.
Cape Kiwanda lies at the southern end of the Three Capes Scenic Loop, near the town of Pacific City. Here you'll find a second Haystack Rock on the byway. Hike up the dune to marvel at stunning views of sandstone formations as they turn yellow, gold, or even red in the changing sunlight. If your timing is right, you'll spot one or two of the dory fleet sprint onto the beach, after a day of fishing. How's this for a dinner setting? Restaurants along the Pacific Coast Scenic Byway accommodate just about any taste. Many serve an ocean view with every meal. Up and down the coast, you'll find seafood, of course, but don't limit yourself just because you're by the water. The Central Coast begins around Lincoln City, which is one of the larger communities on the byway. It has a reputation for being windy and was recognized by Kite Lines magazine as the best place to fly a kite in North America. It was incorporated from several small towns and as a result offers a sandy beach that is 7.5 miles long. A number of small state parks lie nestled along the ocean between Lincoln City and Newport. Stop, get out of your car, and take in the commanding views that are there, right next to your all-American road. Depot Bay boasts the world's smallest navigable harbor, 6 square acres in all. A seawall runs the length of the downtown, so everywhere you go, you're rewarded with a dramatic view of the Pacific. It's considered Oregon's whale-watching capital, with thousands making their way past Oregon each fall and spring. Fishing and whale-watching excursions regularly set sail from this little harbor. Leaving Depot Bay, you'll soon find yourself at Cape Foulweather, a basalt outcropping that looms 500 feet above the water. It was here, in 1778, British Captain James Cook first sighted the mainland of North America on the Pacific coast. A fierce storm that almost put an end to his expedition earned this rugged stretch of coastline its name. Coastal weather can change by the hour. You will find a lot of wet days, but rain can become blue sky with white clouds in an afternoon. Mist kissing the headlands burns away, or storms can last for days.
Again, back into the regular session, and with no further items on the agenda, we will adjourn at 1:16 p.m. Thank you.
So moved. We're still trying to get there. Thanks, Counselor.
Motion to adjourn. These are on.
Yeah, I got the timers off.
Good.
And I want to check this this HD card and see if that whoops.
Okay, we're adjourned. Yeah. I turn this on. Do I turn this on? Or I stopped it?
You stopped it? Yes.
Say it, and then you can turn it off. All right.
So I turn this off. This can go to server. And that one, we want to look and see what's on that card and see if it's audible. And if not, we still have some issue. Because